Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 2nd regular council meeting of the City of Bel Air Beach. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, will you please do the honors?
Councilmember Robin Aki.
Here.
Councilmember Mark Beam.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Gaddis.
Here.
Councilmember Rita Swope.
Here.
Vice Mayor Glenn Gunn.
Here.
Mayor Joseph Manzo.
Here.
City Manager Lynn Reeves.
Here.
City Attorney Fred Riley.
Here.
And Councilmember Jody Shirley has not arrived.
Okay, thank you very much. The first item of business is the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion? So moved. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes 6-0. Next portion is the citizen comments. I'll note that Jody Shirley has just arrived. Next portion is the citizens' comments. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who wish to speak, please come up to the podium here. There's a microphone. There should be a green light on it. If not, please press the button that says push. Please leave it on. Don't turn it off. For those of you who might be new here, we have a rules of conduct when you address the council, either being in the presence in the audience or coming up there. Please follow them. It makes things go a lot easier for us. So with that, if you'll just give me a show of hands, anyone who would like to speak, I'll call you up, and then you'll have 3 minutes. Would anyone like to address council tonight? Ms. Van Skoy.
Good evening.
Name and address, please.
Sorry. Jim Van Skoy, 7th Street, Bel Air Beach. We've been talking about, the city had been talking about for a long time, wanting to bring on board or acquire a person who could write grants for the city. I have been in contact with an organization, a major organization that would be willing to meet with the city manager and the mayor, and on the 6th, and late in the afternoon, and speak about how they could help the city with some grants. If the city manager and the mayor are interested.
It's Friday, March 6th.
Correct.
I won't be available Friday.
So maybe if you get it, do we have an interest as the city with that?
Well, you've got something on your agenda.
That's more for the storm.
You just give us the whoever it is, we can contact them and schedule something.
It's your contact, right? That's up to you.
It's my contact. So if you could give me email me some appropriate dates, I'll reach out to them.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is the Washington firm you mentioned? Tonight?
Correct.
Okay, this is a major lobbyist in Washington. I know this firm.
And yes.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we'll get back to you on that. Thank you. Any other citizen comments? There being no other citizen comments, then citizen comments will be closed. Next, we have a presentation of the completion of the emo course to David Gaddis. Mr. Gaddis, please see me at the podium. You've heard us speak in the past about the EMO courses. It stands for the Institute of Elected Management Officials for Florida. It's run by the Florida League of Cities. And in the past, Jody Shirley, Glenn Gunn, myself have taken the introductory course. And back on January 10th through 12th, Dave Gaddis here took that course. That course is it's the basic intro to being an elected official. And it gives you everything from how the municipal government is formed to rules of ethics and how to conduct council meetings. It's all kinds of information. There's not a week that goes by that I'm not looking at my notes from that course. It's an extremely useful course. Dave, like us, put in about 24 hours of his own time to do this and drove all the way up to Jacksonville. So on behalf of the City of Bel Air Beach, I want to present him with the certificate of completion and our thanks for a fine job there. we have the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office with their presentation of our monthly events.
Good evening, how are you guys?
Good, how about yourself, Deb?
Good. Did you guys get the stats for, this is gonna be for January now?
We did. Okay.
Going over page 1, it looks like we're keeping with the same progress that we've going on with no burglaries, no stolen vehicles, which, good job, everybody locking their cars, that's a big part of that. Page 2, we had 3 people arrested in the city of Bel Air Beach. With that, there were, you can see how it breaks down. I normally go over the highlights reel. This is, it was kind of a quieter, I would say, no real highlights. There were 4 DUIs. 3 of the bigger cases were DUI related, where other things transpired. There was a fight that took place in Indian Rocks, and we actually stopped them in Bel Air Beach. And another DUI where they gave a false name and didn't have a valid driver's license. So no other huge incidents for January. There were 820 events total, 909 units responding to the city. I always like to point out the top portion of that, the majority of those numbers are self-initiated activity. So if you look at the top 6 with directed patrol, traffic stops, house checks, ordinance violations, special details, and vehicles abandoned, illegally parked, those are typically, not always, but self-initiated activity. I went ahead and added that up. That's 699 out of the 820 are self-initiated activities. So deputies are staying active in the city. We have on the back, page 4, 3 crashes. All in different locations, so there's not really a problem location per se. And 115 citations and warnings. That's broken down to 94 warnings, 13 parking citations, and 8 citations. That breaks it down. Any questions?
Sheriff, I just want to say to you and the men and women on the force, you thanked us, but I got to thank you. This is 4 months running that we have had no crime in our city. That's spectacular. You cannot do any better. I always kid with the deputies and say, I want better. It's impossible to do better. You're doing a great job. And I know that a lot of the stuff that you've seen has been spillover stuff that's happened from other towns that's come to here, but it's not happening here. And that's a testament to how well a job you and the people on the force are doing. So thank you very much. I see Deputy Maldonado in the back. Thank you. You guys are doing fabulous. Can I ask one question? I saw crime scene tape on the way in up on Gulf Boulevard. Are you privy to tell us what that was? Because I'm afraid our nice record might be up for
I got hit
accident.
on the way in, and it was just a single car accident, and they believe it's a medical episode that took place that caused it.
Is everybody okay?
They're going to be okay. They were transported because of the medical episode they had.
Good. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for the sheriff? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 5 is consideration of accepting the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ending September 30th. We're going to have a presentation by Janine Bittinger, CPA of Salt Marsh, Cleveland, and Gund, our accountants. And with that, Ms. Bittinger.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. With me is Richard Christini, also from Salt Marsh, Cleveland, and Gund. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. This is a good report, and appreciate everyone's hard work. Your city manager, your city clerk, and of course your city treasurer worked very, very hard to get this early delivery, to get a report out of this size by March 2nd. Believe me, it's quite an accomplishment. So I'm just going to go through a few highlights. I know you have a long agenda tonight, but just to point out the structure of the report. There's a transmittal letter, first of all, that our city manager actually created for this report. That's the first document. Then we go on to the MD&A. Remembering this is Just like commercial accounting, we do a management discussion analysis and for government now, and it's very well done. That gives you a good overview, so I'd encourage you to look at that if nothing else, because it kind of gives you the highlights in that document, and that starts on page 6. And that is written by the client. We review it, but the MD&A comes strictly from the city with input from the manager and, of course, your city treasurer. Oh, I did want to mention, this is the highest opinion that we could render. It's what's known as an unmodified report. Just go over a few of the statements, just very briefly. I'm not going to read this report to you. But on page 15, the statement of net position, this is the full accrual statements. So you can see this is comprehensive, just again, like a commercial entity, includes the capital assets. The first column being the governmental activities that encompasses both the general fund and the capital projects fund are governmental activities in the first column. Second column, business type, is your marina fund. And the third column totals the two, but you can see again, this is full accrual, you have receivables, prepaids, we have capital assets, accumulated depreciation. And then the liabilities, again, everything is measured in the liabilities. We have debt that is in there, short-term and long-term, and also we have compensated absences that are due to be paid out. They're measured as of year-end for your employees. So that's all included in those statements on page 15. Page 16 and 17 is a statement of activities. Again, the accompanying statement, which we would call a statement of net income if we were in the commercial sector, but we call it in government statement of activities. But it's similar other than the format. In their omnipotent wisdom, they made it a little funky in my opinion. By the way, they're about to, GASB never met a change they didn't like. They're about to change this again. But for now, this is what we have, where you start out with expenses, changes for services, and the second column, operating grants and contributions, and we did get our FEMA money in this year. So that's why if you see operating grants being higher, that includes some of our payments from FEMA. So just, again, looking down, our bottom line, our net income, or change in net position, if you will, in the governmental funds, $2,033,317. So that's a good measure of the city's health. We spent a lot of money on capital assets this year, granted, and on a cash basis, that went out, but again, in commercial accounting, which this is, we capitalized all that. So this shows you our true measure, I believe, of our bottom line, which is over $2 million. And then Marina Fund beside it, $6,023. So then we go into governmental funds, which is really how you run the city. You run it more of a modified cash basis. So on 18, we go into these are statements when you see Andy's reports that you're more used to seeing as far as general fund, capital projects fund, than the total column, obviously. And then we have a reconciliation between the two types of statements from fund balance to net position on page 19. So again, just go over just a few highlights. Page 20 is your accompanying statement. There again, you can see one of the biggest expenditures that blows off the page, but we got a lot of work done this year. We got a lot of the Gulf Boulevard landscaping done. We know we're working on the undergrounding, so the number that jumps off the page at you obviously is that $3,569,000. But again, we did a lot of work on capital assets this year. You see the debt repayments. And so again, on a cash basis, we spent the money. You can see from that. But look again, on the full accrual basis, it shows that the city is quite healthy. And page 21 again is the reconciliation between the two statements. Usually another statement that usually my councils and commissions are interested in is page 22, kind of a report card for the general fund. It shows you the budget actual. And we can see the variances and show how well you budgeted. And absolutely, we actually took in more on our revenues than we budgeted, so that's good, by $135,000. Total expenses, we actually came in under what we budgeted, so we had a positive variance of $54,000. So again, very good job on the part of this council and staff to create a budget and adhere to it and actually somewhat exceed it. So it was a good conservative budget. Good job. let you read the notes, I'm not going to read that to you. We did try to describe a little more about the undergrounding and that process and the assessments, because as we reviewed everything, we said, you know, the debt is in the city's name, even though it's being paid for through those special assessments. We disclosed the debt, so we felt like we had to tell the reader a little more about that whole assessment program, so we enhanced the footnotes to cover that. And again, speaking of the debt, on 49 and 50, you can see more details of the two debts that we have outstanding, the one being the bonds for the undergrounding, and the other one, the debt we've already had for our city hall here. In the back is another, if you really are a student here, I'd encourage you to look at the statistical section where you have 10 years of demographics of all kinds, and also 10 years of schedules and graphs for your revenues and expenditures, so you can kind of see trending over time. And it is a good trend. We're going in the right direction. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Questions, council? Vice Mayor?
Great job, appreciate the hard work.
Thank you.
Kudos to the city manager, because it's kind of indicative that it's been a seamless transition to outsourcing our financial review.
I agree. Lynn has worked very hard because he's the one that's here 5 days a week, so he fills in the gaps.
So,
And I did call on him for that, didn't I, Lynn? And I appreciated myself very much.
so good job, city manager, on that.
And Patty as well, you know, the staff that's in place, very important.
I saw for 2019, I saw a number for 2.6% unemployment rate in
Yes,
in this.
correct.
What does that encompass? I mean, people who are looking for jobs who can't find jobs, or people out of the marketplace and just don't care anymore? Or, I mean, we've seen all the numbers nationwide, and I'm just wondering.
That's a good question. I know where you saw that because that's in the MD&A, and again, that was created by Andy, and I'm not quite sure the source he used for that. That's an excellent question, and I guess we can ask him further what his source was for that number, right?
That's Richard Christini, ladies and gentlemen. That data comes from Pinellas County,
Okay.
and typically that's the referral point for us because none of our cities are large enough to carry that kind of detailed data.
No, I'm just wondering what the parameters are around that. Again, are those people?
It's county-wide.
Okay. A couple other things, communications-wise, we're trying to increase communications with the residents and trying to give them a picture of the city's financial health. And we just plant a couple seeds, and we can circle back around at a later date, but I just want to plant the seed on a couple things. We're looking for just a handful of metrics, that perhaps just one sheet of paper that we could show to the residents, and it's easily comprehensible. It doesn't take a CPA to explain the bookkeeping aspects of it regarding the financial health of those things. And so maybe just start thinking about what would be a handful of metrics that we could point to, and somebody could pick it up and say, oh yeah, okay, we're taking in more money than we're spending, obviously. Obviously, the burn rate on our reserve fund is good, and just those kinds of things. So, along the same lines, maybe some long-term goals for the city. I know you're kind of an auditing thing, and you're not really in a position for making those kinds of recommendations or forecasts or trends, but you obviously see other municipalities, and what kind of things are they looking at long-term, 5, 10 years, where they're trying to get to in their expenditures or their revenues or whatever. An interesting one that we've been struggling with is our unassigned reserve fund.
Right.
It's like 137%, I think is the number I saw in here, of our operating fund, our general fund. And I know there are parameters for that it's like 17%, I think, by the state, 20% by our charter, and we're at 137%. And that doesn't even include our emergency fund of $1 million set aside for hurricanes. So maybe just some thoughts on that also. What are other municipalities doing? From what you've seen in our spending and our fiscal responsibility, are we in a position where we could better apply some of those funds to other projects and still be in a healthy position in the event of unforeseen risk or problem area? I think that's pretty much it. I just wanted to plant the seed, and I'll work through City Manager Lynn Reeves and circle back, and maybe we can get some insights from you. Really appreciate the hard work. Thank you.
Of course, thank you so much.
I want to thank you, being a CPA of 30 years with now holding an inactive license. I did read through all of this. For any of the citizens, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of good and useful information here. I think this thing's like over 100 pages. There's a lot of information in here. But if you really want to get to the detail of the city, and there's a lot of detail in the notes too, it's good reading. It really is. And you know, if you ever want to know about the finances, he did a fabulous job on this. We're going to ask the council to consider approving this. I don't expect that there's going to be too much of a problem with that. I just wanted to thank you also. It was a transition year, and I was going to ask, but I think the vice mayor beat me to it. How did the transition go? But it sounds like it went very, very well, and that's a testament to you folks and also everyone at our city hall here who I know put in a lot of extra effort.
Yes, thank you very much.
Great, thanks. Any other council questions or comments? City, any citizens' comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I could just ask you to stay around until we approve, you could have a seat, but just in case there's any questions, because we do have to approve this, and I'm going to bring that up right now for motion. Okay, so we have consideration of accepting this comprehensive annual report. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It was just presented to us. We've had a chance to review it. Do I have a motion to accept it?
So moved.
Vice Mayor, and we have a second. Do we need any discussion? We will go to a vote. Patty, can we do this voice? We can do this by voice, right? Or do
Would
wanna
you
vote?
like to do roll call? Up to you.
Do roll call, that's fine.
Councilmember Beam,
I'm sorry, Patty, you know what? Are there any citizen questions before we go to vote? Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Beam,
Aye.
Councilmember Gaddis,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Councilmember Swope,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn,
Aye.
Mayor Manzo,
Aye.
Councilmember Aki.
Aye.
So it passes 7-0, it's accepted. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for
Thank
the
you
fine
very
job.
much.
Appreciate it. Next is item number 6. We have board reports. We now have 5 boards. I didn't know how to do this, so I said I'm just going to go alphabetically. That would put the Board of Adjustment first. I see a member here. Is there a report from the Board of Adjustment? There normally is not, but since you're here, I wanted to give you the option. Shaking your head, so it's Josh Hollins, and so we'll have no report from the Board of Adjustment. Going alphabetically, I do see Stan Sofer here. He's the chairman of our Charter Review Committee. Mr. Sofer, I know you have a report. We also have Captain Zabel.
Mr. Mayor, council members, fellow residents, my name is Stan Sofer, 117 Fifth Street. I'm the chairman of the Charter Review Committee, and next to me, I have Mike Zabel, secretary, and he and I are going to basically make the report. Let me say that a successful committee consists of participating, interested members. Our committee has this group, and we feel that our efforts are successful. The participants, if I may, are council members Robin Akey, Glenn Gunn, Dave Gaddis, Mark Beam, Jody Shirley is the vice chairman of the group, Mayor Joseph Manzo, Bert Sarafan, myself, and Mike Zabel constitute the entire committee. Let me not leave out our city clerk, Patty Gentry, who was successful in keeping track of our verbal meandering. This is the first review in 10 years. We picked apart the previous charter, however. Our job is to not only make changes and improvements, but to keep the changes within valid reason. That reason is cost and clarity to the citizens who will have to vote on our suggestions for change. What was accomplished was a joint effort, mostly with consensus and little fist pounding. Some of our discussions were passionate and enlightening. With that said, here are the results of our committee, which is basically there were 88 paragraphs reviewed by our group and approximately 21 updates or changes. And that took a lot. With that, Mike, if you'd like to.
Yeah, Mike Zabel, 3320 Hibiscus Drive West. Yeah, we're having our final meeting, it appears, on the 9th of March, next Monday at 5:30. We're going to be reviewing all of our write-ups that we've worked on and see if we can come to a conclusion to put this to bed and forward it to the council as a whole.
Dan? We're happy to answer any questions the council may have of us, but I think you guys pretty much know what's going on.
You know, 5 members of this are from the council, so I think a lot of us know, but there are other individuals. So do we have any questions from council for the charter review chairman and Mr. Zabel?
I'm good, thank you. I also listen to the audios, although I'm not a member, so I'm up to date on what you guys are talking about and everything. Appreciate it.
Robin's on it, so. Citizens, are there any questions? So next time, if everything goes right, we have a meeting I know coming up this week, hopefully.
Next week,
Next week?
Monday the 9th at 5:30.
No, we have the 5th. That was the optional meeting. I think we put that one in, right?
Correct.
We said we were going to do that. So the 5th is our meeting, and then the 9th is hopefully when we finalize everything as a group, and then we'll have recommendations. Just so the citizens know, the way this works is the recommendations will come to council. There's, as Mr. Sofer, Chairman Sofer said, there's a lot of changes. Some of these changes, for example, because we changed the finance officer, like 8 paragraphs had to change, so it's not as bad as it sounds. The question is, each one of these changes represents a separate line item when it gets to the ballot, and you have to put it on the ballot, it has to be bilingual, there has to be explanatories, so a lot of it may not make it on this year's ballot. So what we have to do now as a group is try and figure out the most important. It's kind of a triage situation, and figure out what we have to take care of first, what's most important to the city. Our city attorney has mentioned that it'd be best to have 3 or 4 changes at most for the charter. So that's what hopefully you'll be coming back with. Then if the council accepts that, then it will go on the ballot, assuming that the Division of Elections approves our language. It will go on the ballot, and we're shooting to have it on for the presidential election in November. And then it's up to the citizens to either accept those changes or reject those changes. So it's not something that the people here are going to decide, it's something that the entire city decides. Thank you very much. I served on the committee. I know the hard work that went into all of this, but for those who didn't, I mean, this was really a good committee. I think Stan maybe even over-exaggerated. We really got along. Everybody got along very, very well. There was some good discussion, but I thought it was really run very, very well, and I think that was pretty much the consensus of everyone. So wonderful job to Chairman Sofer and everyone who worked on the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3 would be the Finance Committee.
Good evening, Rick Schock, 115 13th Street, and I'm the chairman of the Residential Finance Advisory Committee. 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to brief the council at the work session, and at the end of that, we were given some very clear guidance as to how you wanted us to move forward. We've not met since. We meet on the 10th, so we should be prepared to either at the work session next month, if you can accommodate us on that agenda, or at the council meeting, we should be ready to give you our final recommendations as directed.
We keep a board reports on each council, and I know the Parks and Recreation Board, just because they've had a lot of events, have been addressing us on a monthly basis. We know Charter Review will be back next month, so you can pretty much plan on the spot if you'd like it. Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? And audience, any questions from the city members? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Can the city manager provide a copy of the new CAFR to the finance committee too? Because it updates some information and provides some good background and some stuff.
Lynn, I'm going to ask if it's possible, I would like personally, and maybe everyone else here can we just get a PDF of just the financial? I have it right now. I mean, that's just something I want to keep handy because we'll reference it all year. Do you have that just separately instead right now I have a PDF of it on the entire agenda for today, but do you have just a split out of that in PDF format?
I can get one.
If it's not a lot of
Are
work.
you just talking about this year?
Not this financial report that we just got.
Oh, yeah, I can, that's,
That would be helpful, I think, to them and to everyone.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to have it contained as opposed to have it with the rest of the agenda from here. Only if it's easy. I mean, if not, you can peel it out. It's easy to peel enough out of the agenda if you can't do it easily.
Yeah.
So, thanks. Parks and Rec Board, Jim Vanscoy.
Good evening, Jim Vanscoy, 7th Street, Bel Air Beach. I'm going to be speaking twice tonight, 3 times actually, I suppose. Our car show is coming up on the 22nd. We have about 7 people that have rented tables for the event. Our sponsor is Largo Medical Center. they're supplying all the goodie bags and paying a fee to sponsor the event. The trophies have been, I think, sent out to be ordered.
I think we're waiting on something from you.
No, I already sent it to Con.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so they will be sent out to be ordered. You've already, I think he's already getting some people coming, sending their registration forms in and so forth. The Sheriff Department Humvee will be here. The Fire Department antique truck will be here for that event. And of course, all the collector cars as well. It promises to be a good time. We have Kona Ice coming. That's basically our refreshment because it's between 2 and 5. We chose not to have somebody here cooking food. It's between lunch and dinner, so there was no need for it. So just something like, a cool treat. That's it. If there's any questions, let me know.
Questions from council? Questions from the audience?
Hello. Excuse me, my name is Amanda Mackey, and I just wanted to thank you for the opportunities that these events present in the community. As someone who is running for office, I'm running for Congress in the 13th District against Charlie Crist, and these present opportunities for us to meet people in the community and to get out and hear from the folks what their thoughts and concerns are. If I can just speak a little bit briefly about my race, I would just like to say I'm running here in the 13th District that goes from basically southern Pinellas County, Pinellas Point, up to Clearwater Beach. It includes Bel Air Beach, of course. And one of the biggest motivations that I had for running was really what happened with Red Tide and how it really decimated the beach communities. And I saw that our congressman was not doing anything to address those issues. I worked in Congress for 10 years, in politics for 20 years, and I know the process that members of Congress use when there's a devastating event that happens in their district. And I just didn't see that happen. And there's so many people that don't work on salary. They are paid for being, cleaning or bartender, barback, waitress. And so they weren't able to have income at a time when Pinellas County was telling people not to come here as visitors because of respiratory problems they would face. And so for me, this was really a moment where I said, we need to have real leadership. And so I decided to leave my career as a partner in a very large law firm, and I left my career to run full-time against Charlie Crist. And so I'd be happy to talk more about it, but I just wanted to give some insight into my motivation for running, given this is a beach community, but also to thank you for the opportunities that you present for people who are running for office to be able to meet with people and visit people in this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. Best of luck to you. And you and I have been missing each other on telephone calls, so hopefully, let's try and get it done tomorrow, okay? But thank you very much for coming here, and hopefully we'll see you at that car show. If not, feel free to come to the city.
I'll be here.
Thank you. Any other comments from the citizens? Last but not least, we have the planning board, and I see Rudy Davis is here. Rudy, you're going to be presenting for the planning board. Thank you.
Rudy Davis, 612 Belle Isle Avenue. And I am presenting at the request of Chairman J.C. Emfeld for the Planning and Zoning Board and the discussions in our last meeting. Did we give him copies? You should have a copy of this little spreadsheet on the front.
Mr. Davis, just so you know, if I might just let you know, that was placed on our dais tonight, so I don't think people probably have reviewed it, so feel free to brief us as ever you see fit.
To have that for documentation. And then there's also some studies that we had done. Going through the spreadsheet and the pages following that, the board went back and looked at every property. We were told to think out of the box, come up with any type of revenue that could be generated utilizing city property. So this section of papers essentially addresses all of the small parks. And when we looked at it, The idea was to do something that would enhance the usage of the parks, the facilities in the parks, as well as something that could be added that would generate revenue. We came up with a combination of sailing centers, paddleboard centers, and storage centers. Now, the board wants to make sure that we say up front, we are not advocating doing this without a full discussion with the residents of the city and a full approval of the residents of the city, because it is a major departure from the way these parks have been utilized prior. What we've learned over the years, and it's my term as mayor, speaking with a lot of people who've worked on the Parks Board previously, the parks are generally used for people who go and walk to the waterfront, sit down on the park bench, watch the water, what have you. There's a dock there, some may fish. The other is when residents with their pets walk up to these parks and utilize them for their pets. The areas in the middle really don't receive a lot of usage other than passing through the sidewalk. However, if you'll go now to the second page, and each of the parks has been broken down this way. We took and laid out the black line around the perimeter of the park's dimensions. The orange box at the front or water side is the setback, typically 25 to 30 foot from the seawall back. That's what's utilized generally as park benches or what have you. And then the blue area at street side is the 25-foot setback from the street. That's typically all that's used by the dog walkers. Everything in the middle, and especially this border in red, because it gives the 7-foot setbacks on each side of it, is the unused typically area. In the blue boxes at the front there of the red section, these are areas that we set aside for either sailing centers or paddleboard centers. When I say paddlecraft, it could be paddleboards, kayaks, canoes, any type of paddlecraft. And then in some of them, we recommended usage as a sailing center. For instance, 16th Street is on open water. That would be better utilized as a sailing center. And all of these, the docks would be converted to floating docks. Then they could walk down the ramp to the floating dock, put their paddlecraft or sailcraft in the water and sail on. Eliminates all the need for trying to drop down from a dock or a seawall. It's very difficult to do. This especially makes these park areas now more attractive to people who don't live on the water and don't have waterside facilities, even the condos. When we looked at if you go back to the spreadsheet, the first section of this, it lists every park, and then it lists the construction costs for the paddle centers and the storage centers. And the storage centers are one of the most lucrative cost ratio to build, income received industries out there. It also happens to be a very quiet type of industry. It would not be a disturbance to the neighborhood. These would all be limited to resident usage, so you don't have transient people coming into the neighborhood. There are no parking places. It's only drive up and park in front of, park on the street while you go in and out of your storage unit, so you're not having to disrupt that 25-foot of setback with parking spaces. And looking at it, I used the high construction cost per square foot. The trade magazine for this industry says $35 to $45 a square foot is the construction cost typically for a storage unit using climate control, meaning they're air conditioned or heated or whatever, climate control. Extending that out by the square footage of the area to be used, I'll jump right to the big numbers. And if you finance the total construction of all of the parks and all of the units, 46 units, it would be over a 15-year mortgage period at 4% interest. It would cost $3,900 a month to pay the bill for that construction. If you look over to the other side of the column there, it shows that the monthly income from all units would be $15,066. Or annually, it would generate $180,000 in income to the city if they were all used, complete occupation. Typically in that industry, it's pretty high occupation with storage units. The fact that a resident could rent a storage unit within the city limits and not have to cross the bridge back and forth is quite attractive. The fact that you can walk up to them, they're not within a confined area on the second floor, and that they're all climate controlled would be very attractive. And the income rate is generated. On top of that, we had a company called Solar Source. They've been in the neighborhood or in the city, the county for over 25 years, do a study on what it would cost to put solar panels over all of these and what would it generate. And the return is about 90% of the cost of you making them climate controlled would be generated by the solar panels over top of them. While we were at that, we had them look at City Hall, and you see the numbers there. The installation of $355,000 solar system on City Hall would cost $2,000 a month, but over the life of the unit, it would be a $19,000 savings, energy savings to the city on City Hall. So as I mentioned, this is a kind of a radical view, but it's some significant income. I think there should be some discussion and some residents should be involved because it's not something typically found in the city. We went on to discuss any questions on that particular section before I go into the marina and Belle Isle, seawall.
Vice Mayor?
I got one question. All that looks pretty much at the pocket park, right? Did you look at Bayside Park as a possibility for?
Because of its encumbrance, that it has some grants, etc., I don't think that could be used, no. When we looked at City Hall and this property, we essentially looked at the building. And the solar feature was excellent. We're in discussions, we haven't got anything concrete for you now, but I can tell you we are in discussions that are going to look at dividing this building so that the floor plan is changed and all of the city functions, including council chambers, etc., will be on the west side of the building. And this entire area, east side of the building, one of the things we're looking at is a exercise facility on a rental basis where residents would, instead of having to go to LA Fitness or something like that, we would have a facility here that they could do, and also looking at adding a senior wellness feature to it where the elderly have special programs for maintaining their physical fitness, as well as the younger group that's typically attracted to it. But we did not look at this facility as far as storage units and sailcraft because you really had enough in the other parks. And I will say some of the other parks can't be utilized for this. From the solar standpoint, like Belle Isle Park has so many big, heavy, old growth trees there that there's just no solar advantage, and you'd have to cut them down to do that. And you had enough facilities that are open, like 16th, that you could kind of share the wealth there and not overdo it. One of the thoughts I had on these storage centers also was this could be walked into slowly. You could put out there for a number of people who are interested, you could really start doing a park at a time and have them already rented or committed to by a resident before you ever built them. Meaning there would be no loss of revenue at all, and you wouldn't build it until you knew you had it occupied. So there are some benefits to trying that approach as well.
Mayor Davis, I wanted to, well, give you a quick little, super quick history here. I couldn't make your last meeting to hear this, and I think we had a work session that night, and I asked the vice mayor, I said, how did it go? And he said, there was some incredible ideas. I didn't have a chance even to review the tape. I'm hearing this tonight, I gotta tell you, and I've been one of your toughest critics, I am very impressed, very impressed. I agree with you that this has to be something that we discuss at council, see what we like, and then bring it out to the city. This is, you know, even if we're able to make the decision ourselves on council within the parameters of encumbering lands and stuff, this is something the city has to hear. But this is clearly thinking outside of the box. These are fabulous ideas. Whether we accept them, do them or not, this is great. So my kudos to you and to everyone on your board. You've done a really good job with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Continuing on, we're looking at some of the water assets the city has. We haven't gotten a lot of cooperation from Water and Navigation yet. I think they're still in transition of their management, so they haven't been very helpful to this point. But some of the ideas that we're going to present to them, there's one here on Belle Isle. If you have this picture, it shows a boardwalk, water side actually of a seawall, where boats in water, large boats, could be parked there. Instead of having all the poles, tide poles, and if you look down, they're really unattractive, and I think they don't think they'd be well received by the residents. This idea, I'll just hold this up a bit. This idea keeps large boats, we're talking about 50 to 75 foot, that's the best range here, of boats to have in water. Someone in council mentioned, geez, that would look like a mini Monte Carlo with those nice boats parked along the seawall there, and it wouldn't be nearly as objectionable as having a lot of tiny boats up on lips. Some of the numbers here, you've got 525 foot of seawall, 45 foot of the westernmost part of it is in front of the lift station, and there are rocks there, a shallow area, and could not be utilized. So effectively, you've got 480 feet. Bill Lusk, Bill here, been very helpful. He took his boat and went along the seawall about 10 foot off, and the water depth is 8 foot at low tide, 10 foot at high tide, more than enough water depth to accommodate these larger craft. Using some numbers that I had experience with on having my own dock built, it's about to build it's about 375 foot per dollars per foot, and at 480 foot, that's $180,000. But docking in Pinellas County averages $10 a foot, or $600 per boat per month, averaging 60 foot, between 50 and 75. And that would be $3,600 per month in income. So monthly construction cost would be $1,040. Again, amortizing it over 15 years at 4% would cost you $1,040, but your income would be $3,600 a month. Now this would be, those calculations are for monthly rentals, permanent rentals. We have just learned that actually if you use that dock for transient boats only, several things were accomplished. One, if you did monthly rentals, you're going to have to provide parking spaces there along Belle Isle, another unattractive feature. If you use transient boats, boats that are traveling down the intercoastal waterway north and south, docking there overnight, 1 or 2 nights, that kind of situation, it's almost 3 times the rental rate. Here you're getting $10 a foot per month. With transients, you get $1.50 to $2 a foot every night. So numbers like that would be $2,700. If you had all 6 slips built, it would be $2,700 every night. So it's a better way to go. We're still studying that, and we'll come back to you. We also have, instead of having a permanent tie-pole type dock, we're thinking a floating dock works better, and moving it off the seawall about 5 to 10 foot. Then you don't have to put a security fence along the seawall. You just have 2 entrances at each end with a gate where the people could come in and out from the 2 gates, but would not have a fence along the entire seawall. So this is in discussion, but the revenues look very good with that. The marina, we're just really starting to get into that. We have a VDOT construction that Lynn has can give to you that increases the dock spacage there. Again, it would give more resident usage if you want to go that route, or you could make the VDOT part of it transient and get even more rentals. It's just something that we'll continue to look at. There's also been discussion about, because we have to have 70 parking spaces, of doing a second level with all 70 parking spaces underneath retained, but on the top level. That would be then available as a facility for something like a restaurant, where the city could lease out that area, a high-quality restaurant put in, and then they would have their own parking on the second level. So, all part of discussion going on. We're getting some great ideas from people who come in like Bill Lusk and add comments to it, but what we have there, I think, is a pretty good start on things. We have another meeting next week, and we'll continue discussion and report back at next council. Any questions?
Do we have any questions? Again, I want to thank you. There's another benefit to the boat configuration that you have. It's been an ongoing problem with contractors offloading supplies, and they can't catch them, and it's, they do it at 5 o'clock in the morning before we're up. This ends that problem. So it's even an extra benefit to us because, as you know, ultimately they're going to damage our seawall, and then nobody did it. So another great idea. I just wanted to let you know, I'm going to try and be at your next meeting, but I have an acquaintance through another mayor, and I mentioned this, I think, at your last meeting, or the prior meeting, that I was going to do a walkthrough on the marina parking lot with this individual, just to show it to him. He does conceptual stuff. He'll redevelop 10 city blocks if you wanted him to do it. They're very high-end architectural firm. He's doing us a favor just to walk through and see what concepts might be able to be done. I know I threw out that idea about double-decking things. I don't know if it's possible. This person does that all the time. So I'd like to report at your next meeting. Hopefully I'll meet with him by then. And I'd like to let you know what he thinks. Then if you're interested, we'll get him in touch with yourself or JC and get this thing moving on. But this is really good. I'm impressed. Thank you. Do we have any questions from the citizens?
Let me just ask generally,
Oh, sure.
is the idea of having the storage centers in the parks in between the sailing centers and by the way, the first 25 foot, there would be a lot of enhanced landscaping on the end of those storage centers, so you didn't actually see them. It looked just like a 10 by 10 block wall with a lot of landscaping in front of it. So what's the general thought? Anyone? No approval or disapproval?
They're not throwing knives at you, so that's, you got kind of maybes, it looks like. So, that's good. We will talk about it further. The Vice Mayor had a question for you, so.
And one aspect that Mayor Davis didn't touch on here that he brought out during his meeting was with this Monte Carlo scenario, it's a minimal impact on the promenade there. So, I mean, it doesn't touch the palm trees, it leaves just the aesthetics alone, and you don't have parking spaces and that sort of thing. So I know he's working very diligently on that. That's a huge plus for this scenario.
Mr. Davis.
Mr. Davis, there was
Can I ask you, just real quick, when you were talking about the marina, and I mentioned this to Mr. Reeves as well, the V-dock doesn't seem very functional. Consider a T-dock where you can run a catwalk from the existing, you may lose a slip, but you can get clear access all the way around rather than having that V where you're going to close in the end, you're going to have a turnaround issue. So that's one thing. I'm sorry I can't attend your meetings. I've been really swamped, but so I apologize for missing those. And just the other thought when you were talking about those storage units, we probably, before we start asking residents, it might be helpful to have some visuals, for them to take a look at. We might need to do a rendering or something like that. So,
Okay.
but thank you. Very good.
Ms. Mackey, do you have a
I was
question?
just going to reiterate the same
Okay.
point. Someone mentioned just like sketches or drawings of the concepts, easier to visualize.
Great job, thank you. That concludes board reports. We now have the consent agenda. We have 4 items. I'm going to read all 4 of them. I'll ask for a motion to approve all 4, and then we'll approve them. So the consent agenda has 4 items. Number 7, approval of February 3rd, 2020 City Council meeting minutes. Number 8, approval of February 19th, 2020 work session minutes. Number 9, authorize city manager to advertise for street paving and curb replacement. That was brought by City Manager Reeves, and the description is street paving and curb replacement as needed throughout the city. And number 10, authorize the city manager to advertise for boardwalk replacement. That was by City Manager Reeves. That's the boardwalk replacement at 4 beach accesses on the map. That's what we were talking about last time we were here. Do I have a motion to approve all 4 on the consent agenda?
So moved.
That's Mr. Beam, and second by Mr. Jody. There's no discussion on this? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous, 7-0. The full consent agenda, items 7 through 10 are approved. We now move to the regular agenda, and the first item is to authorize the city manager to execute an agreement for city grant review and funding research and budget amendment approval. It's attributed to me, but I think we were all discussing this last time. I know I was kind of vocal about if we're going to do a stormwater fee, and that's what this is, to make sure we exhaust any funding. So it's execute an agreement with Cardno to authorize a budget amendment increase and transfer from funds from the reserve account. So it was mine. I can't bring a motion under our charter. Does anyone want to make a motion to consider this? We have a motion by the Vice Mayor. Second. Second by Mr. Gadd, Councilman Member Gaddis. It's open for discussion. Mr. Vice Mayor, you're first.
It's time, this is seed money, we keep talking about pursuing avenues, researching grants. We've got a very busy staff, and we really need to tap into some expertise to do this. So this is the way forward, I think, and it'll probably shine a light on what's out there. And if nothing else, put this issue to bed if it's not out there. So I'm all for it.
I think it's incumbent on us, and I've said this before, that if we're going to consider a stormwater fee increase, that we make sure before we ever, I look at fee increase or a tax, they're all the same thing. You're still paying more out of your pocket every month as a citizen, and I pay it just like everyone else. So I said, if we're going to do it, let's make sure we've exhausted every funding possibility, and this exhausts that idea of what can we get. I know I provided some information to the city manager, but it's more than just a pamphlet that I got online. There's a lot more to it. So I believe that gets this ball rolling.
I have a couple questions, because it seems like a big fee for no real explanation of what they're providing us. They are doing some research, maybe telling us that there are grants available, maybe not. It's pretty vague what this document provides. I've used sources like this in the past, and generally, their proposal has a lot more information in it. I'm not going to say I've been successful with any grant writing services, not a huge fan of them, but I think we need a little more detail of what they're providing us for that $6,000 fee.
City Manager, I know you worked with these folks. Do you have any other information you could impart to us?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, we reached out to a couple different firms. The first one led us to believe that they had written city grants, and they gave us a proposal several months ago. And turned out that the only thing they'd ever written was nonprofits. And I will tell you that even in the conference call we had with Cardinal, they stated that a lot of these grants are needs-based, and quote unquote, Bel Air Beach isn't considered a needs community. We had a discussion about what we've done as a city, and I've provided you a little spreadsheet that we updated in your packet tonight that talks about the grants we've looked at and things we've done. So what they're basically going to do is, and it's came from several council members, and that's kind of why I want to either we get something or we don't get anything. And so all I'm asking to be done is let a firm research, and if they come back and say what I've been saying for several months, that, hey, you're not qualified for this, you're not qualified for that, that's fine. If they come back and say, here's maybe an avenue you can go to, then we'll look at that avenue. This isn't to write any grants, it's basically to do a report on research and possibilities of grants. So we're not gonna gain it, we're gonna gain a second person's opinion, I guess is what I'm saying, a second opinion. That's what we're gonna gain from this. An outside opinion, I'll say.
And when I researched them on the internet, their website doesn't talk about grant writing. So I'm really not sure that they're the right source for us, I guess is.
Well, they do a lot of grants for brownfields, they do SwiftMud stuff. They have done some FEMA stuff, they explained all that to us. I know they do write grants because they have some people on staff that's their work that they do. So really what I'm asking for is, the council has been very expressive about, we need this grants expert, so what I'm trying to do is move it forward and say, hey, are we missing something? If we are, then help us find that. If we're not missing something, then I want them to state that to the council.
I'll echo Ms. Shirley's concerns, because although I believe this is the stepping off point in the right direction, I do echo her concerns about what are the actual deliverables. I mean, they give us a list of deliverables, but does that really align with what we're looking for, or are we just asking for a rock and that's what we're going to get back? So I will be happy to sit down with you when time permits, and maybe come up with an actual list of deliverables that we're looking for. These particular project areas within this price range, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we've told them that. We've told them that, you're looking for stormwater money, which is a priority. Infrastructure in general, we've explained all that to them. So if you look down, they're going to review the existing capital projects that we have that are in the out years and current. The demographics, that's kind of what they said to us about a lot of these things are needs. And in our FEMA grant issue, we didn't meet the threshold of the cost-benefit ratio that we did put in. We ended up 0.46. Well, you're not going to get any money unless you're a 1 or higher. That's how it works. Some of the recreation and park grants, it's a points-based system, and you got to be creative about what you put in those grant applications, and we were successful. SwiftMud were considered not a regional system. We had them actually out here on site, and they told us basically we wouldn't qualify for their money. But based on what they're telling you, they're going to they'll examine the previous FEMA grant and see if there's something we can do. They'll recommend any supplemental, possibly, projects. So they are going to review all that stuff, and then they're going to give you, the deliverable is going to be that upper level of comments that they made. They're going to give you that deliverable for those comments and infrastructure, and what the possibilities are of us obtaining funds. I'm just trying to get an outside source so we can say that, okay, this council has looked at this, and going forward, this is where we're at, and that's all I'm asking for this to be done. And I'm not going to say I'm not guaranteeing we're going to get anything. I'm just saying that this is an outside source that does write grants. We've talked about all the engineering firms to do that also. I guess the fee is, well, based on the nonprofit fee, this is very cheap compared to what the lady told us, that she had no experience in governmental grant writing. So it's up to the council what they want to do going forward.
I think we've been looking for a second opinion for a while. I can't guarantee that this is the way to go, but this seems like actually a nominal investment for just researching to see what's out there and if there's anything that maybe could help us. I've had people come to my house and work for 2 days, and it cost me that much. So based upon this list of deliverables, I can fully justify this price.
I guess I would say two things. In looking this over, number one, we have the thing that if we do go with this on the schedule, it says that they're going to have their letter to us no later than March 6th. So
Well,
we will have to change that because they're not going to have it in 4 days,
Yeah,
obviously.
this engineering firm is under contract to us, so we'll just do a purchase order if the council approves this, and that's how it'll go forward.
I'm most interested in doing something like this. I just don't, in the way it's been presented, kind of sounds like, okay, we're going to get a second opinion and it's going to confirm what I said. I want them actually this time to not confirm what you say. I really would like you to be wrong this time.
I'm hoping
I hope
they-
you're wrong, because that gets us money for the city. But if they confirm it, they confirm it. But I think that does put to bed then all these questions about what else is out there. This firm that Ms. Van Scoy was telling us about, they are major lobbyists. So if there's stuff there to be gotten, they can drive it home for us, and I know that's their job. These are one of the biggest lobbying firms in Washington, D.C. I don't know what the second biggest, okay, and I also know one of the biggest in the state. So they can bring it home for us if we can find stuff that's good for us, but we gotta find it first, and I think this gets us going with that. Right. I'm with Councilman Gaddis, 6,000, we're spending, what, 36,000 just to evaluate the stormwater assessment fee, so 6,000 is not a lot in regard with that, and it also answers that question of, if the residents come to us when we go and actually vote on the stormwater fee, did you look at other sources of revenue? And the answer will be yes, we did. So I think it's part of that. So if we need to firm up the detail to suit everyone on council, I think that's something that we can do. So.
Will they include recommendations on, for instance, a grant policy, a city grant policy?
We didn't ask them to do any policy work, you know. I'm sure they would if you know, for the dollars. We did not ask them, and I think we could find something that would work with the city that's out there already with some adjustments, you know, that we could have somebody review to make sure.
Just a comment, with all the money that's been saved over the last year, I hate to spend it. On the other hand, how are you going to find out anything unless you do something like this to find out exactly what's there and if we can do anything? So it's money that we had in the budget, we saved it, or you saved it rather by doing a good job. So I don't think it's a terrible risk. I think it's a good idea to move forward.
Any other council comments? Open it up to the citizens, citizen comments. There being none, I'll close it back to the council. Any final comments? Glenn, on you.
I do have a question. Lady, when you were selecting this company, did you talk to any peer cities to see who they've used in the past? Because I know we have some nearby cities that have received some grants, and did they engage anyone to help them with that process?
Well, I can tell you in most cases, there may be some that do partial. I know Clearwater does some lobbying, but I know they also do this in-house, and they don't, you know, it's typically done in a lot of cities. There's a person that actually is a city employee that, or a person in the department that actually does the grant applications and does the research. And so, I consider a lobbying firm a little different than a research, because the lobbying firm is the one that's gonna go to, in most cases, it's for an earmark. The lobbying firm does not lobby grant applications at, the state of Florida or to FEMA. What they do is they lobby the elected officials in the state to maybe put an earmark into the budget for something. That's typically what a lobbying firm does.
Yeah, I'm not in favor, this has nothing to do with lobbying. I'm asking, from more of my experiences in the nonprofit world, but we apply for grants constantly and get them all the time. And there is a process in which to sort through
Right.
the information that's available out there and find out where you may or may not be eligible. What I see this agreement is doing just that. Am I correct in saying that they're just going
Right.
to sort through information, public information, it's on the web, tell us where we may or may not be eligible?
And we're gonna give them some guidance, as it says, we've talked to them about the infrastructure. Give us we want some guidance unless we're missing something, Just on the preliminary, what they said is, and I tend to agree with them, a lot of it is needs-based, and you need to be able to say that, okay, like I said with the ratio with FEMA, if you don't meet that, then you're not gonna be qualified. But this will be an opportunity to give the council some feedback and an outside source that gives the council some information on what may or may not be available. We're not gonna tell them, oh, don't tell the council this. No, we're gonna tell them, find what you can, because if you can find something that we've missed, then, hey, we'll go at it and try to write a grant for it. But this will just be an opportunity to have a second set of eyes look at it.
Go let them do the research and come back with
Right.
a list of who we could potentially apply.
And they may come back with the list we've already got. I can't tell you that.
Jody, have a good one for you. Maybe they can help with the undergrounding in your area and reimburse us for ours. You never know. Might be a benefit.
Vice Mayor, you have the last word if there's no other council comments.
No, I'm still in favor. This is the stepping off point, and we need to start this journey. This is the first step. So it's going to either give us information we can use, or it's going to tell us where else we need to look, or how better to pursue this.
So before the council is to authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with Cardinal for city grant review and funding research and budget amendment approval as detailed in the letter that's attached. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Councilmember Bean,
Aye.
Councilmember Gaddis,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Councilmember Swope,
Aye.
Councilmember Aki,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn,
Aye.
Mayor Manzo.
Aye. So the authorization passes 7-0. City manager, you're so authorized. Please proceed and let us know how you make out.
Okay.
Thank you. Item 12 is to authorize the city attorney to prepare a resolution for Bel Air Beach causeway bridge tolling and congestion mitigation. It was proposed by me, but it should also be shared with the city manager. It was both of us. It was part of the meeting that we were at with the county regarding traffic mitigation. The resolution is to follow by email, and the descriptive is that the resolution to charge toll for the Bel Air Beach Causeway Bridge. I'll ask for a motion, but if somebody wants to, I can give a little bit better information on this if someone wants to defer back to me once we get that motion. Do we have a motion to do this authorization?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Shirley, you have the floor if you want to pass it back or if you want to speak first.
You take the floor.
Thank you. I appreciate that. City Manager Reeves and I had a chance to, at long last, to meet with Tom Washburn, and we we're going to pick it up under unfinished business. I know he has a little chart of what we discussed over here. But what they asked, we had been talking about the idea, and I kind of said it initially as a way of combating the traffic, to toll the bridge. And everybody kind of laughed the first time I said it last May. And I said, well, you're laughing, but you're not saying no. And they said, Well, we're not saying no. So that idea was out there, and we're using it as a possible means to avoid traffic congestion, but it's also a revenue source. We had a nice meeting, and we'll go through that a little bit later, but what they said to us, and we met with Tom Washburn and Witt, is his name?
Yeah.
From Forward Pinellas, and they said that they really don't want to move at the county level until they know that the council is behind us. So I want to make it clear, you are not authorizing us to slap tolls on the highway, we're not doing that. This is simply to talk with them. All we're going to do is get the information and get the ball rolling. They actually told us this could take between 5 and 7 years, which may outlast all of us, but maybe we can move it through quicker. The bottom line is if we don't talk with them, if they don't see that the council's behind it, I don't think they're going to give the city manager and myself the time of day. So that's all you're doing, is just allowing us to speak further with them. That's all this is. I apologize we don't have the resolution. I had prepared 2 resolutions in about 15 minutes of time. I shot them over to Patty Gentry. She got it over to Fred Riley, but I don't think it's completely prepared at this point in time. But essentially it says what I just said, which is we're going to speak further with them about investigating this. Trust me, we will not make any deals with them. They're not going to make any deals with us anyway that quickly. So that's what it's all about.
Mayor,
Council questions. Yes, you.
just to highlight what they sent over to us, really what they're asking for, we don't need a resolution for you and I to deal with them. What they want is a resolution from the council requesting that Forward Pinellas investigate the feasibility of tolls. So that's what they're asking for.
So we don't have to do a formal resolution, just...
Well, no, we need a resolution, but it'll basically talk about investigating the feasibility of tolls.
Okay. And I think you had said traffic congestion, which I also like that idea, so traffic congestion.
That's really what the resolution would be.
Okay.
I know the resolution you sent over had, you, me, and others, but I don't think we need the resolution for you and I to talk to them.
That's fine.
I think what we want to do, because the Forward Pinellas group is the transportation arm of the county, so we're going to ask them to do something, do a study and whatever they do, take it beyond, but that's what they're asking. And then there's some other things that we can talk about at the unfinished business section.
And I will say this, we kind of have cross purposes here. The county is looking to add more people to the bridge. They want to bring everyone out to the beach. And we're looking at this, and Mr. Hansick's shaking his head. We're saying, wait a minute, we have too many people on the bridge and on the roads already, and it's causing traffic jams and ruining the quality of life here at Bel Air Beach. So we're coming at this from 2 different points, but I'm telling you, this is something that they're going to wind up looking at for their benefit, so we might as well see if we can get something for our benefit also by looking at this. So I would recommend that we at least get this authorization to move forward with it, just to get the ball rolling here. We're not going to get very far, I don't think, that quickly with them. So. Lynn is shaking his head. It's taken a year to get to this point. So,
in this resolution, are we going to pitch some specific marketing ideas, like incentivizing it, everybody gets a cut, and the amount of traffic, and the amount of revenues projected, you could...
I wouldn't think you wouldn't want to do that at this point, because that's a negotiating process. I think what you're asking them to do is look at the feasibility of the possibility, or the feasibility of them tolling the bridges, because Mr. Blanton told us that it wouldn't just be this bridge for the most part. It would have to be a county-wide determination, because of the situation of the bridges that are owned over several areas by the county.
and even the ones that aren't, like Treasure Island, there's consideration of tolling that. So it seems that this is something that may be coming again down the road. So we can take the position of let's leave it alone, but the idea obviously, and this is where we would get into the detail, but I just went over to Sanibel Bridge this summer, and I asked my guest, I said, do you pay $6 or $7 every time you cross? The answer is no, they don't. They have a local resident discount, which is considerably less, and so it's not going to cost us $7 to go to Publix to pick up a gallon of milk. But the people who are coming in for the day, the people who are going up to Clearwater, yeah, they'll pay $7, and that's fine if we get a cut of that, again, helping us out. So that's what we're looking for. I'm not even sure the answer to this question. Can we write this authorization, or do we have to come I mean,
We'll just ask Fred to, yeah, you just have to tell the city attorney it's good to go.
so that's basically what the authorization is going to say. So the council's going to vote kind of trusting us.
You're authorizing the city attorney to prepare a resolution. We will bring that back to you at the next official meeting for your approval.
Okay.
And then we'll send it to Pinellas County.
I'm going to just give you the time frame because we asked them to get back to us with information early March, and I remember that, and I'm going to start putting the pressure on them about the end of the week.
I got an email from.
Excellent. I'm going to ask that maybe we just do this as a special meeting before our next work session. We can knock this out in 5 minutes, hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not an issue, I don't think.
So this is just simply to get this,
I'm saying Fred can do it that quick, but.
Fred can do it.
How soon do you have the?
The 7th, the 18th, 19th?
23rd.
23rd.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm totally confused on how this is gonna help traffic. I mean, you're gonna have people stopping to pay the toll, to get on over the bridge multiple times a day. You're gonna have it backed up all the way, even worse. I don't understand why everybody keeps saying that's gonna help calm the traffic. I mean, you're gonna be stuck in line to pay a toll now.
Mind if I step in?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sure it'd be told by plate if you didn't have one of the transmitters in your car. However, what I see is that, yes, we would collect some funds, but I don't think that the traffic would slow down if all bridges did it.
If all bridges do it.
If our bridge did it and that was it, naturally people are going to try to save that money. But if all bridges are trying to do it, this is still the most popular beach in the United States. They're going to come.
The thinking here is to get out in front and not be picking this up at the end when everybody else decides they want to do it. You're right, if everybody's told, maybe we'd be the more expensive toll. One of the things they spoke about when we were meeting with them, and again, we're going to say some of this later, but they talked about, actually having signs in advance of this saying, Beller Beach Causeway might be X amount of minutes, and you might pay a premium if one is less or more. I do envision this people electronic collection. There's not going to be toll booths, and that would back it up to probably 75. It's not good. Okay, so do we have any other council comments? Any citizen comments? Mr. Hanzig.
John Hanzig, 103 22nd Street. Sounds like a good idea. However, last week, before the cold front came through, I was going to one of the big box stores, and traffic was horrendously backed up. Not at Indian Rocks, but the next light east, that far back going this way. In the county's infinite wisdom, their tragic mistake is when they rebuilt this bridge, it's only 2 lanes. I don't know off the top of my head what the one is over there in Clearwater, if that's 2 or 4.
2 each way.
2 each way? Okay.
Four total.
All right, so I don't envision this road being widened. I don't envision Gulf Boulevard being widened. And I would have to agree with the councilwoman that made the comment, yeah, we're going to have traffic, but I agree too. They use this one because they don't want to go through Clearwater Beach. I get it, and as far as we residents should not have to pay a significant amount. We pay enough in property taxes and we deal with the tourists and the snowbirds and everything else, so. But, yeah, they made a big mistake when they only 2-lane that. So, good luck towing.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Back to council. We'll take it to a vote. So this is to authorize the city attorney to prepare a resolution for Beller Beach Causeway Bridge tolling and congestion mitigation. The resolution will follow via email. We'll meet with it. We'll meet at we'll call a special council meeting to be held before our next regular session on the 23rd, our regular work session. So we'll have a brief session to hopefully get this approved and get it to the county. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Councilmember Beam,
Aye.
Councilmember Gaddis,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Councilmember Swope,
Nay.
Councilmember Aki,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn,
Aye.
Mayor Manzo.
Aye. So the authorization will pass 6-1, and City Attorney, if you need any information between the city manager and myself, I think we can fill you in. I've given you some information already. I think I've probably given you more than what was required from what the city manager is saying, so between the two of us, we could edit it down. Thank you. Okay. Item number 13 is the consideration of Resolution 2020-01, opposing House Bill 1011 and Senate Bill 1128. Those are the bills that are seeking to restrict the ability of local governments, counties, and municipalities to regulate short-term rentals. It's proposed by me. The resolution is actually here. It says on the agenda that it'll follow by email, but we have the resolution here. Thanks again to the city attorney, and again, I only gave him 15 minutes of notice, and that also city clerk, appreciate that. So this is a resolution opposing House Bill 1011 and Senate Bill 1128. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay. So we're up to discussion. Councilmember Gaddis, you have the first word, and City Vice Mayor, do you want to speak?
I'll yield back to you.
To me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the reason why we did this, at the Big C meeting last week, they were talking about having an audience with the governor tomorrow, and I don't know what's come of it. I have not heard anything. As when I left here today, I have not seen anything that we're having that, if they are. But the governor has been very supportive of keeping the home rule. So one of the things that Florida League of Cities has said was thank the governor and keep asking him to do it, because what the word that we got was the other side is going to be asking him to not favor the home rule, if you will, so to basically withdraw his opposition to this bill. This bill has passed its way through at this point in time. There's been an amendment in the Senate, which it was up to actually allow our grandfathering to stick. That was this morning, and as of this afternoon, they've postponed that. So this is in a state of flux. We need to let our voices be heard. I told you last time I was here, this thing was still going through the committees, and I told you I was going to reach out to our representative, Nick DeSigle. I did. The next morning I called his office, and you would think when the mayor of a city calls your office, you might return the telephone call. You would be wrong. I called, I told him that I did not, on behalf of the citizens of Bel Air Beach, we didn't really want this thing to pass, to please not support it. No one returned my call, and later that afternoon, I think we were at the Finance Committee meeting, and I told everybody that he voted yes. Just remember that, okay? So that's where we're at right now. This resolution basically is us as council representing the city saying to Nicholas DeSigle, to Senator Jeff Brandeis, please don't vote for this, and to the governor, please keep up your opposition to this. That's all it's going to do. How effective it'll be, I don't know, but doing nothing isn't the solution, and we can't rely on everybody else to do our job for us. So that's what the background of this is.
I have a comment. I too have made some calls, and basically you get this nonchalant, we don't really care what you think attitude whenever you call in. Just my own personal evaluation of what's going on is you have people in charge that don't live on the beach and don't really care, and they really would like to be able to rent property around their cities. I don't know why there's such a big push to take cities like ours, our rights away from us, but it is quite depressing, and it's a very negative tone that it's setting for the state.
I will say, I've heard a lot about this since going back to last year. The Suncoast League of Cities, this is not on their priorities, and I was one of three mayors, myself, Larry Lund from Treasure Island, and George Kritikos from Clearwater, the only three mayors who actually sat down with them in their planning session to try and get the priorities straight. They didn't listen to a word we had to say. And what makes it worse, and when you start connecting the dots, and I'm not going to ascribe any motives or whatever, but you find that the leaders of the Suncoast League of Cities in our branch come from the same district as the persons that are proposing this stuff. It's, and then you find that the people who are proposing it are real estate people and they've got connections with Airbnb. If I did that up here and I passed some law that lawyers got a special break in this town, I'd be arrested tomorrow, okay? It's improper to do it. Yet our legislature is doing just that. And if they can't beat you this way, then they've got this Burt Harris Act amendment, which the attorney for the Trask firm basically told us as legislators, he said, if this thing passes, don't even bother to make any legislation affecting anyone's property. Because I think I was mentioning it to the Finance Committee chairman, I said, if you get sued on this, they can sue you for all future damages, and there's no real detail on how they come up with that amount. It wouldn't be uncommon to get several $100,000 of a lawsuit. And the other change that they're trying to make is that the legal fees can only be won by the people bringing the lawsuit. So the cities can only lose, they cannot get legal fees anymore. So you have no real downside to bringing one of these lawsuits. And just imagine us with a budget of $2 million getting hit with a $500,000 assessment for one property. Now multiply that by every property. We'll be broke. We will wipe out that $5 million in record fashion. So that's what we're up against. And when I say our priorities as a city have to be focused, this is what I'm talking about, because this can destroy everything that we bought here. And I don't want to sound the alarm too much, but I do, because this is serious. I don't think we bought to having a bed and breakfast next to us. Not here. This is what we paid extra for this city. So we got to let them know, and we got to call them. And I know it's frustrating because you don't get anywhere, but I'm not going to stop, and we'll try and do what we can do. And I was hoping to get to the governor to be able to put this resolution right on his desk. But we'll send it to him, and hopefully that'll do it. I'm glad Governor DeSantis gets it.
Mayor,
Yes.
at 4:17 today, I received an email from the Florida League of Cities saying the vote for the SB 1128 was postponed.
That's the amendment.
Right, and they give the list of who's on that committee, all their contact information. Patty, is it possible to make this available on our website so that residents can reach out to these 8 or 10 individuals that are listed on this email?
Yes, we'll do that.
What Councilwoman Shirley is referencing, that's what I was mentioning, there's an amendment that's pending right now that would recognize the grandfathering. And if that happens, then the whole focus on this bill actually becomes acceptable to the Florida League of Cities, and usually Florida League of Cities' priorities is pretty much in line with ours. So it's probably something, I haven't read the rest of the bill to see if there's anything else that would hurt Bel Air Beach, but I think if we can keep our own home rule control here, we're going to be under, this council wants to do what the citizens want to do. If you all come here and tell us you want B&Bs, then we can change it and you'll have it. But that's not what I'm hearing. I'm not hearing that at all from anyone. So there's a few people, the city manager's fighting a couple people that, even though they can't have it, they're doing it. So, but that's not what we want as a city, I don't think. We all can benefit financially, but we won't in the long run. I think our property values are what's going to take the hit.
Just to clarify, because I think there's some misnomer here. City of Bel Air Beach is this bill that's up there, and Senator Simmons put an amendment to it that basically would stop that preemption from anyone from from 2011 forward. We don't fall in that. The city of Bel Air Beach is, in the bill, is still grandfathered. It doesn't, because we started our enforcement or 3-month rule long prior to that. So what the amendments, or what the bill really is saying, it's talking about cities from 2011 currently that have put ordinances for this, that, and the other to try to quell the short-term rentals. And Senator Simmons put an amendment to that onto this bill to not do that preemption, which would help the cities that aren't grandfathered from 2011 to present. So, and we need to support that because that's our fellow communities that have that same issue. you know, I want everyone to kind of understand that we're grandfathered at this point, and they aren't taking that grandfather out, it's still in the bill. So it's basically it's cities, and I'll use our neighbor, they changed their ordinance a few years ago. I don't know what they changed, you know, maybe it was one word. And, you know, I've always been a proponent, don't touch that ordinance. Because at the present time, we're in good stead, and we have been. But other communities did change it for whatever reason, and what it's done, it's caused them a lot of consternation going forward. And you got neighbors that don't want a bed and breakfast next to them. So, and I would say to anyone, we'll put this list on the website, send them an email, call them. You know, I know they don't like a bunch of paper, but that's what it takes. It takes the residents telling people moving forward, hey, you're our representative, especially Senator Brandis or Representative DeSiglia. We need to tell them because one of the chambers could stop this. And it looks like Senator Simmons is trying to stop it in the Senate, which is a good thing for everyone if it does happen.
You know, the big sledgehammer ultimately is the governor. He can stop it with the
Well,
stroke of a
yeah.
pen. So and he
And I
gets it.
know he is not for this. You know, he's put out a lot of information, so we've got him in our favor, so that's another good thing, even though it's, you know, it's, how do I say it? It's a lot of little people, we gotta get the word out. And, you know, if we get it out, even though it technically doesn't affect us, it's benefiting our neighbors, and I think that benefits all of us.
I look at it as just a test, and if they get that one, they'll go for more.
That's
They'll go
correct.
for more. The whole plan is to chip away at home rule until we have no home rule.
So,
And once that's destroyed, well, we've lost control of the city.
And this Bert Harris amendment is the back door to all of it. So that would basically handcuff us as a council. We couldn't make, I mean, something as simple as if we said, okay, the hedges can't be more than 8 feet, and somebody says, well, you just ruined my backyard pool's privacy, and here's what that was worth on the rental basis. Well, that's what they can sue for. That's why, I mean, you know, it's not me as the attorney saying this, it's not Fred as the attorney saying this. This was Jay Draganow of Trask, and they do quite a bit of cities, and he said, don't even bother to pass legislation if that comes. So, you know, that's what they're going to do. They're going to chip away with it, and they're going to chip away with it any way they can. So that's the point of this, and to the extent that we can do it. I know we were told one time, voice over writing. They like to hear, well, hearing is better than writing emails, so, but an email will be fine if that's all you have time for.
I've got a couple of things. I'm getting kind of confused here because as late as this afternoon, the Florida League of Cities says if the Simmons Amendment is attached, they support this bill. So it's a very fluid situation right now, and are we going to go on record saying something that is out of lockstep with the Florida League of Cities, or is going to confuse the situation? Would it be best to sit back and take our direction again from the Florida League of Cities rather than try to come up with something and do a resolution?
Can I answer that? I mean, only the reason why, originally I expected tomorrow morning, like at 5 in the morning, to be leaving for a meeting with the governor. So as this stood, as of when I wrote this, which was last Friday, that was the situation. And now Senator Simmons came along, and now it's been tabled, but I mean, it is a fluid situation. But as it stands right this moment, if we took a snapshot right now, and as of last Friday when I wrote this, it was opposed. We should oppose. So it could change, yes, but I don't know at what point we want to make our voices known. Basically, I think this thing says, don't do anything to affect our home rule. Now, obviously, if it helps our home rule, then we don't have an opposition to it. But if we hold off on this, by the time we meet again, I believe they're out of session at that point. So
I don't think, to be honest with you, sending that resolution is not going to hurt us. It'll help. If it isn't helping us, it's helping the group or the rest of the cities that have that situation. So I think it's a positive thing to go ahead and send it.
We just just heard from the sheriffs earlier today how trouble in Indian Rocks spilled over into our city here. We didn't have the problem, it was Indian Rocks. Indian Rocks was the city that the city manager was referring to. They lost their grandfather, and I don't know what they did, but it's a disaster. And it's a real disaster for them. People talking about 30, 40 rentals in a house, down the block from them. I don't think it's what you want.
Another real-world example is in 2016, Arizona passed a preemption bill, and now they're backtracking because they created a huge mess. So, Florida should be taking a look at some of the other states and what's happening. The Arizona State Legislature is saying, man, we really messed this up.
The problem is some of the people who are advocating for this are in cities that short-term rentals probably aren't the reality. It's the beach communities. The coastal communities are the one that, if you're going to come here for the week, most likely you're coming to one of the beach communities as opposed to probably going, I'm not picking on Ocala, but you're not going to probably go to Ocala for the week, most likely, or Seminole or something like that. So.
Well, it's specific cities in Arizona that have the high tourist trade. They come in and looking at the Red Bluffs or whatever. It's not the entire state, it's very targeted cities.
Any other council comments? Citizens? Mr. Hanzik.
John Hanzik, 22nd Street, Bel Air Beach. I am very much in favor and encourage you to approve this resolution. And just as a refresher, last council meeting, I mentioned calling the representative's office, and I don't believe I heard back from them. I left a voicemail, I did get a hold of Senator Brandis's office, and literally, much to my surprise, I did speak to him. But in both instances, when I left a voice message for the representative, I said, if you continue to favor this when you're up for re-election, don't count on me to re-elect you. I will do everything in my power to defeat you. And when I said that to the senator, he kind of took his breath away. And I said, sir, I went in harm's way, or was willing to do harm's way for almost 24 years to protect the rights of the citizens. And I consider home rule as important as any rule there is. And for the legislature to take it away because you think you can, because Washington does it to the states, now is the trickle down to the communities. I will do everything in my power to defeat you when you're up for re-election. And I do encourage everybody, and I'm waiting for that link, because if I don't do it every day, I would do it multiple times a week. They will get tired of hearing or getting an email from me telling them, no, this is not what I took that oath for multiple times. And I do encourage everybody else to do the same thing. Let them know we want home rule. Because in essence, it's like the other councilman said just a moment ago, what's next? We won't need a city council. We won't need a mayor. The state will dictate everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanzik. Ms. Van Squibb?
Dan Squay, 7th Street, Bel Air Beach. The Burt Harris Act, another thing to take in consideration, after a while, our insurance company is probably not going to want to insure us when we start getting sued too much. So, for those of you who think that, our insurance companies will be around forever to back us, pretty soon they'll start remodeling their policies as to what they will cover. And so then we'll be starting to dip into our own pockets as a city. So I'm in favor of doing this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens? Back to council. Anyone else on council before we vote? Okay. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll? So what we have is consideration of Resolution 2020-01, opposing House Bill 1011 and Senate Bill 1128, seeking to restrict the ability of local governments, counties, and municipalities to regulate short-term rentals. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Beam.
Aye.
Councilmember Gaddis,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Councilmember Swope,
Aye.
Councilmember Aki,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn,
Aye.
Mayor Manzo.
Aye, it's unanimous, and I thank the council. I think that sends a strong message to these individuals. We stand in unanimity that we don't want them interfering with our home rule. I'll sign this tonight, Madam Clerk, and if we can get this out, that would be fabulous. Thank you, everyone, for making this happen real quickly. Mr. Riley, City Manager, and Madam Clerk, I do appreciate it. All right, item 14 is to authorize the city manager to send a citywide survey via postcard regarding the proposal of the upcoming Park and Recreation Board events for 2020 and 2021. It's sponsored by Councilmember Swope. This descriptive is to send a postcard survey to all residents. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. I'm sorry, who's second? Dave Gaddis. Okay, open for discussion. Councilmember Swope, first word.
Well, actually, I'm just going to echo your comment earlier, Mayor Manzo, regarding that the council wants to do what the citizens want us to do. And we don't know what the citizens want us to do because we're not asking them in this case. I understand the email that the city has is antiquated. It should be even trashed, in my opinion. So we need to hear what the citizens want. We've had a lot of citizens express interest in certain events, but they want to pick, they want a voice. And I would like to have a postcard sent out with, the events that are proposed, let the citizens pick which ones they want, have a say in it. They want their voice heard, and I think we should listen to it. So that's what I'm asking for.
Okay. Council?
I'd like to add to that also. Whenever I ran for election, one of the things that I wanted to improve on was communications. Unfortunately, ADA sort of ties our hands with things. And as a council member, you can't freely put things online without taking certain risk. I think that this is actually a good step. It'd be nice to hear back from the citizens.
I agree with the council members on communication. I don't want to necessarily pinhole it to a postcard about parks and recs. I think that we need to clean up how we communicate and figure out a way to communicate to residents. Mailing's probably the best because we have everyone's address. It's pretty simple. Will you get response? I don't know. It was kind of floated the idea, and I actually looked back in our strategic plan. It's one of the top items we're supposed to be working on, is communication. We've put together a great finance committee. I think we need a communication committee. It was recommended in an email, and I fully support that. So to kind of move this along, I don't know how we could possibly get the survey out and back before some of these events, and I don't want it to be about parks. I want it to be about how do we communicate with residents, period, about anything. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to take over your proposal here, Rita, but I would really like to see this kind of turn into, let's consider nominating a group of residents for a communication committee.
Let me go with first comments first, and I'll get back to you. First comments?
No, I mean, trust me, I'm all about communication, and I agree that we need to have better communication with the residents. Now, as far as the park, I guess this is kind of angled towards the Park and Rec Board. In the very beginning, didn't we do a survey already? And so I guess my question is, if we already did a survey, what's the benefit of doing another one right away? I mean, are you proposing like do a survey with these specific proposed events to get a yay or nay? Because I mean, guaranteed you're not going to get a unanimous yay or nay on all of them. Some people, for example, the upcoming car show, I'm not into cars. It's not my thing, but hey, you know what? you guys here are into cars, go for it. I'm all about it. I'll be there to support you guys. I don't have an interest, but hey, I'm willing to support anybody. So, I mean, I totally agree we should have some communication. I agree. I like the idea of the communication committee. I don't know what that entails. Like, are those the people that, well, whatever it is. But I don't know if we need another survey when we've already had one.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. We had a survey in April of last year on these events. First off, item 15 is the approval of these events. I mean, it seems to me that the time for surveying was about 4 months ago. Park Board has been working diligently, and I see members here, and they'll speak for themselves, but they've been working diligently on these projects, and they've brought us as an advisory committee what they feel they can do. Now we're, without even listening to them, we're saying, well, we're just going to throw it all out to the citizens. That's wrong for so many reasons. So I have no problem doing a communications committee if it's done properly. We certainly can listen if there's fair input. It can't be a biased survey. I want to know who's being surveyed. Anonymity doesn't work with me. I want to know who's the people who are responding to these surveys, and are they full-time residents, are they part-time residents, are they residents at all? And, you know, but in terms of doing anything on the parks, that's item 15. They're here tonight for their approval, and they're, in essence, if you want to call it, they're okay to proceed with next year's agenda. I see a survey postcard that doesn't exist and could take months to do and get back to us. And in the meantime, they're just being stymied. And I don't like that idea one bit. I think it throws them off their game. And it certainly would affect some of those things that they're proposing, which have dates, I think, as early as May. So I'm not in favor for the park, but I would be in favor of a communications committee and a means of surveying the residents on certain areas. But understand something, this is what's known as a representative form of government. So at any point in time, you can talk to your representative. That's the way you do it. The Parks Board meetings have been open, and I don't think they've been very well attended, but they'll fill us in on that.
When we sent out that survey before, we didn't know who responded to it either. And yeah, it was done, but it was sent to an old email address. I mean, I'm not saying I'm for these events or against them. It doesn't really matter to me. But I just want to know what the citizens want to attend. We had some great feedback from a lot of people that live in this community within the last week regarding these. And a lot of them are in favor of several of these. I just want their voice to be heard is what I'm asking. I do agree a lot with Councilmember Shirley regarding it doesn't need to be just the Parks and Rec issues. We need to communicate with all of our citizens about everything. I mentioned it last work session with the finance gentleman when he gave his report that we should communicate with the city more. So I'm asking for open communication with these people, but as far as anonymity on these surveys, we don't know who answered on the last one either, but we accepted the results, so I don't know that we want to force people to have to say who they are to answer the questions.
Mayor, could I?
Yes, sure.
I'm not, I guess, how I look at it, I'm going to be honest with you. Our CASA contact list, it's got 450 names on it. We don't even know who they are. We've struggled to get email addresses. And what I would suggest, not just about Parks and Rec things, I think we could do, you know, and if it's through communications, I think what needs to be done is we do some type of paper survey, not a postcard. And on that survey, we also give the resident the opportunity, in returning it, to put their name or email or the way they want to be contacted on it, and send that back to the city. And we rebuild, we eliminate this constant contact list, because I know several of those people on there that they don't live here anymore. Basically what they did, to my understanding, prior to me coming, and I pretty much said, no, if it's a resident, put them on there. People just walked up to the counter, and Patty, you correct me if I'm wrong, if they wanted to get the newsletter, they put their name on the list. Well, a lot of people might want to get the newsletter, but we're trying to communicate to our residents. We're not trying to communicate to somebody that lives in Largo or Tennessee or wherever, just our residents and property owners. So whatever going forward, my suggestion would be not only survey the park issues, survey what the residents are looking for, as far as how do they feel about the stormwater projects, how do they feel about, the sunshine, whatever. But we need to create something that's maybe a one-page survey so we can really find out what their interests are, and it would be something that's mailed, not emailed, and somehow we can code it with the address and tell the residents, hey, if you want us to contact you about citywide information, then tell us the best way to do it. Is it by email? Is it by some type of social media platform? I don't know, but I think going forward, that's what we should be doing as opposed to, a smaller postcard. Both of the surveys, I got emailed a survey just like you did. It was 90 surveys. I don't know if they were all residents. And the survey that we did last year, it actually was only 138 responses. And sometimes we take the percentages on there, and it's the way it's set up, unfortunately, is we get a response for like 53%. That's not 53% of the residents, it's 53% of 138 people. So I think if we did a mailing, we would get, it's not going to change anything about events right now, but at least going long term, it would help us with some, feedback from the residents of what they're really looking for.
I'd like to, sure. Vice Mayor?
The last credible survey that this city did, we paid, what, $14,000 for the underground thing, and that was a credible survey. This issue we're discussing right now is purely symptomatic of us kicking this communications can further and further and further down the road. What I would propose is that we amend agenda item 14. And my proposed amendment is that we task the city manager to draft a resolution to form a communications ad hoc committee. It's time, because I think the residents want to get involved in this, and let's hear what the residents have to say, and let's go to the residents to give us solutions to this thing. We need to solve this privacy issue. That's been the roadblock on this communication thing all along. So among the deliverables in this charter would be for this group to give us methods of solving these privacy concerns, and provide methods to get feedback and give us feedback on city issues like projects, budgets, community events. But let's go ahead and crack the code on this thing at the high level, and then we can drill down to the different individual things. And I think we've been trying all along to get the residents involved in this and get more participation with communications, get the feedback. Well, this is the avenue and the way to do it.
So you have a proposed resolution then?
Yes, well, I just want to...
proposed amendment.
Yes, I want to amend agenda item 14 to task the city manager to draft a resolution to form a communications ad hoc committee.
Do I have a second for that?
Sure.
Mr. Bean, open for discussion on the amendment only. I'm going to come out in favor of that. I think I think a lot of us ran on communications. I understand, and I read something that Stephen Swope wrote, that people can't be here all the time. I see him in the audience, okay, and I do respect that. These are open council meetings, and these meetings are open, but some of them are at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so not everyone's available for that. So if we can do this the proper way and get a representative sample, and I think that's key, then it's something that's worth pursuing. I am concerned about the cost if we're going to start nailing everything, so I think we're going to have to try and work out how we're going to do this. But I also know that because I looked into this in the campaign, if you buy permits and lists and stuff like this, it can drastically reduce your postage costs. So that may be the way to do this. We cannot survey every single thing that a council does. We have to make decisions here. But on some of this big stuff, I mean, former Mayor Davis was here with some pretty big ideas, and I would want to hear what the city has to say on that, and everybody doesn't have to come to the meeting that night, so it actually is an efficient way of doing things. So I'm in favor of it, and that's my 2 cents. Anybody else on council?
Well, this is something that has been tried for 20 years that I've been here. Communication's always been a problem. We had a civic association, and even they couldn't get any more than 50% of the people to participate. So putting a committee together to solve this issue once and for all, I think would be a darn good idea. Needs to be done, and it's a long time coming.
I would like to amend the amendment with a serious deadline, a hard date where we have something. The postcard is instant. You'll send it out, and within a week, if anybody's going to respond, they're going to respond. I'm all for communication, and I'm not against the postcard, but I understand that that's a Band-Aid. And if we're going to do this ad hoc committee, it needs to have a list of deliverables and a timeline, because I think that, in fact, we owe it to you, everyone here, and the people that can't make it here. There's just got to be a better way of doing it, and I believe with a few talented individuals, you can come up with some great ideas of how we're going to accomplish this.
Do we have a second? So what Councilmember Gaddis now is amending the amendment of Vice Mayor Guns. Let's not do any more amendments. Please, this will become difficult to work with. So he is amending Vice Mayor Gunn's proposal. Vice Mayor Gunn's proposal was task the city manager to form a committee, an ad hoc committee, to study the communications. That's what he has. And Councilmember Gaddis, if I'm saying it correctly, now wants to add a deadline with that for deliverables and a timeline. So do we have a second for just Councilmember Gaddis' proposal to add a deadline for deliverables and timeline to Vice Mayor Gunn's amendment?
Second.
We have a second. Back to council discussion on the amendment to the amendment. You're testing my Robert's rules here.
Sorry to make it difficult.
No, it's okay, it's okay. I'm just saying if we get to another one, it's going to get really hard.
Some of these committees that spun their tires for months, and I don't want to see that happen.
I think that's what we
needs to happen.
That's what we do with the planning committee and finance committee and the charter review, and it's worked really, really well. So
They all had charters. What are the deliverables? What's the timeline? It's easy to do, easy to do.
Anybody else on that comment? Okay, I'm going to open this up to the floor now. It's on Councilmember Gaddis's amendment only to add the deadline to Vice Mayor Gunn's amendment. Want me to go through that one more time? Basically, Vice Mayor Gunn has said, basically, eliminate item 14 essentially, and he's saying, task the city manager to form an ad hoc committee on communications. Councilmember Gaddis has added to that with a deadline for deliverables and a timeline. So if you come up and speak on this part only, because you're going to get to speak on Vice Mayor Gunn's, we're just adding the amendment to Vice Mayor Gunn's. I know this is complicated, but we have to take it in order. So does anybody want to speak about adding a deadline for deliverables and a timeline to the amendment? Mr. Hanson.
John Hansick, 22nd Street. Basically, it's a point of information. Councilmember amended the amendment, proposing a date. He should suggest a date. That makes, that to me, as a parliamentarian, makes better sense. I amend the amendment with a deadline of whatever that date may be, instead of putting it on to somebody else. Because now you're going to have to turn around and vote on a date. That's what I'm thinking. I heard from the amendment to the amendment to the motions.
I think I can clear this up, or Councilmember Gaddis can, but we're not supposed to answer back. So if you want, we'll just wait, or I can clear it up in 2 seconds, whatever the council's pleasure.
You're right.
we're gonna have to vote on it anyway. What we're doing here is asking the city manager to put that together, and like we did with the charter review and with the finance committee, we gave them each a charter, and we said, here's what we'd like you to do, and that's where those dates would go in, and I think those dates will be set. The date that they get is not a yes. Anybody else on the deadline for deliverables and timeline amendment only? Back to council. Anyone, any further comments? Dave Gaddis gets the last word.
Nope, I'm good.
I would just say that the point is moot really, because that's how we do business now. We give our ad hoc committees a charter. This is the composition of the group, this is when you start, these are the deliverables, these are what we want, and this is the timeline.
I'm sorry if I stepped on your toes on that one. Basically, I just wanted everyone here to know that we're serious about this, and that this is not going to take very long to resolve.
But it's not moved because it does have to amend what you have, because I mean, it's just adding a point of information, if you will, saying we're going to put a deadline, but it's the way we've been doing business, so. Any other council comments? I'm ready to take a vote on just the amended
One
amendment.
comment,
Yes.
and that is that since time is of the essence, can we look at doing a special session when we do the day of the work session on March 23rd to go ahead and vote on that?
City manager, you have 3 weeks to pull that together. Is that enough time? Correct answer. Thank you. So yes, the answer is yes. Okay. Okay, so we're voting only on the amendment to the amendment, I will call it. It is to add a deadline for deliverables and timelines to Vice Mayor Gunn's amendment, which we'll vote on next. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Beam.
Aye.
Councilmember Gaddis.
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley.
Aye.
Councilmember Swope.
Aye.
Councilmember Aki.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn.
Aye.
Mayor Manzo.
Aye. So the amendment to the amendment passes. We now have an amended resolution from Vice Mayor Gunn, and it's to task the city manager to form an ad hoc committee to deal with communications with a deadline for deliverables and a timeline. Did I pretty much say that correctly, Vice Mayor? That encompasses what you're looking for. That's the question that's before us. I'm ready to take that to a vote unless there's any other comments. I now have to go to the audience for comments. So it's on the proposal only, as amended, to task the city manager to create this committee. I'll get to you. Task the city manager to create the committee to study communications with a deadline for deliverables and a timeline. That's what we're commenting on, not the first proposal by Councilmember Swope. Does anyone want to comment on the amended Glenn Gunn resolution? I see a hand here.
Hi, Alan Durham on 18th Street. I don't know if this is the appropriate place to put this in.
Neither do I.
I'm lost. But my only point of view is I am a part-time resident. I have a home in Indiana as well. So my only suggestion would be when you put this committee together, have someone that is, full-time residents, but also maybe consider part-time. So that, it's hard to get information when you're away from here sometimes. So that's it.
Good point. Thank you. Stephen Swope.
Steve Swope, 8th Street, sorry. Only thing I would ask is when you form this committee and you vote on it, that you make it independent from any other committee. So as there's no other influence from any other committee trying to press their agendas, if you will. I think it needs to be independent. Whatever residents on there cannot be on a different committee. That would be my recommendation. Thanks.
I think it's actually in our charter, the way we've been doing it, so, yes. 2 minutes.
June Van Scoy, 7th Street. Okay, so last year at April 21st is when that survey went out, the constant contact, and I actually put in for a public records request, and I do have a copy of who was asked in that survey right here on my phone. I did put in, so that we do have a source here. Second of all, we talk about communication. My park board has been trying to get lines of communication going for months in this city. We have actually started a campaign at every one of our events, getting people to try to sign up for the email list for the city. In fact, we have increased the numbers by doing so. So there has been work on that. That being said, has this city ever considered the fact that they don't do like some other cities do and do an open house? Where you have your council members here, your employees of the city, and you just do an open house. And you invite the residents in, and you're not doing politics, you're here strictly to answer questions. And when you're doing that, you can promote trying to open up communications in other ways. So there's something to think about. The other thing of it is I don't think that now is the time, after my park board has been working diligently, putting together an agenda for events, to be putting out a survey. In fact...
Okay, wait, I'm going to call point of order on this one because
Okay.
we're just talking about the proposal by Vice Mayor Gunn, which is to actually form a committee on communications.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I apologize for that, yes. Okay, and then when you're talking, then let me get back to that then. So when you're talking about putting together a form of communication, I think that clear guidelines need to be put in place so that way people know that it has to, everything that goes out to the citizens in any kind of form or communication has to come through the city manager or the city council. It has to be approved. And I just hope that gets put in place. Thank you.
Any other citizen comments on the Vice Mayor Gunn amendment as amended? I bring it back to council with Glenn Gunn getting the last word. Council comments based on anything the citizens have said. Just a couple things that just for the record, I believe the ad hoc committees, you are prohibited from being on multiple ad hoc committees, so I think that takes care of that problem. One of the policies, and it's not set in stone, but it's something we've been following as a council, is not to infiltrate any of these committees. We did it with the Finance Committee. We wanted them to be autonomous. No one was nominated. And unless council is coming up with a good argument, I think the nominations come from me, and I don't intend to nominate anyone, including myself, to any ad hoc committees. I think they should just be autonomous. With that said, there are advisory committees, and that's to Ms. Van Scoy's point, they would advise the council as to surveys. They're not going to be shooting out surveys left and right, however they see fit. That has to go past council, if it's something that we want to survey. We're not going to survey everything in the city. I don't see that. But, certainly when we're talking about changing the use of parks or some of this bigger stuff, absolutely, it makes all the sense in the world. It's a good idea. That's my opinion.
May I just say one other thing, is I know we don't normally, I think though that Mr. Gaddis would be a good addition to the communicate, just with his computer background and skills, and by then our charter review should be finished and wouldn't be certain, so that might be one area you might want to bend the rules, just because I think he would be a good asset.
And it's not a hard and fast rule. I'll go by, if
I know it's premature to talk about that.
when we have a work session and we're putting together this charter, if that's what council feels, and we all, have a consensus, then I have no problem making that recommendation. What I don't want to do is load it up with council. We had that with charter review. There's a reason behind that, given the intricacy of the charter. That's not the case with communications, and I think we all know what good communications are. So that's good. I do agree with that idea. I think Dave Gaddis has a good computer background. He's helped us out in the city already. So we might infiltrate it with one person, but that's only one out of however many are going to be on it, 5 or 7 or however many. See what kind of demand we have if this passes. Okay, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I'd just like to quell some of the concerns, the makeup of these committees, because what I will point out is one of the committees that's running right now is made up entirely of residents. And this council, in its wisdom, has said, we're not even going to give you priorities. He came asking for priorities and stuff. When he said no, we took a step back and said, we are not going to give you our priorities. You come to us with recommendations. So I think we can be pretty open-minded and fair about how this operates. And that'll all be discussed in the next work sessions, the composition and the deliverables and the timeline. So I'll work with the city manager and help come up with a straw man.
All right, do you have any other council comments before I attempt to call this question? Okay, so what we have now is Vice Mayor Gunn's amendment, which says again, to task the city manager to produce a resolution to form a committee, an ad hoc committee, complete with deadlines and deliverables and timelines, and that purpose of that committee will be to address communications in the city. And utilizing, I'll just add, the charter format that we've been using successfully in the last couple of charter committees and committees that we've done. Is that correctly stated, Vice Mayor? I'm going to send that out then for the vote. Now, keep in mind, if this vote passes, we will not have to vote on the first one because this replaces that postcard idea. Okay, so we are going to call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Beam.
Aye.
Councilmember Gaddis.
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley.
Aye.
Councilmember Swope.
Aye.
Councilmember Aki.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn.
Aye.
Mayor Manzo.
Aye. So it passes 7-0. City Manager, a little bit more work for you to do. You're now tasked with forming a communications committee with a deadline and deliverables and a timeline in preparation for our next work session. We can do it we can do it in that meeting that we have to hold, a special meeting beforehand, and we can do it at that point in time and discuss it. Utilizing, I think, the charter format that we've successfully used in the last couple of committees, we'll get this thing through probably with ease. Does that correctly state everything? Okay, that takes care of item 14. That was good suggestions from you, Stephen Swope and Rita Swope. And there's positive stuff that comes out of this stuff, and I think this is good. This is something we've been talking about a long time. Item 15 is the approval by the City Council for the list of city events submitted by the Park and Recreation Board. This is to actually request approval of the proposed events and the event dates. They've been giving us some information on that. So do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Mr. Gaddis?
Second.
And a second by Robin Aki, and a third by Mark Beam. Throw it out to Dave Gaddis here first, and then you'll have first and last word, and then council comments.
Sure. This is exactly what I asked for. Thank you very much. All I needed to see was some sort of a calendar of events, and I'm good to go.
Thank you. I think this basically says everything that they wish to do. I know they put a lot of effort into what they can do. I mean, they've had some other ideas that were not feasible maybe with the group of people that they have, so they're not able to do everything. I think they probably want to address us on some of these issues, but I don't think, I think some of these are repeats of very successful items, so this is stuff that I'm in favor of.
I do have.
Yes.
I see that there are, 2 or 3 items on here that don't have firm end dates, but it's basically future or something.
Hang on. Yes, you can stand up there. You're going to be next as soon as we.
Just get
I think she's going to have the answer for you. I know what the answer is because I've heard it from her this afternoon. But there's some they can't. They don't know the dates because they're trying to get counted for the boat parade and stuff. So, does anybody else have any comments before I turn it over to the Parks Board here and then the citizen comments?
I have just a couple. Going through, because I was trying to write all this down and I missed a few of them. So just kind of taking a look at the list, it seems like there's a lot piled up month after month, and it's in the summer months, which tend to be very hot, tasking our staff, that sort of thing. Is it necessary to do that many? We had some really great events. Can we maybe move some, just my questions and not necessarily looking for feedback, just food for thought, but maybe do the music in the park and not the picnic and the beach day or something like that. And then potentially the November festival by the sea, maybe move that up to earlier in the year. So at the end of the year with all these holiday parties, they're not stacked on top of each other. Trying to spread them out more evenly throughout the year. Only thought.
Other council comments? I'll turn it over to citizens, but I think maybe we'll go Parks and Recreation Board first. Are you here to represent the Parks Board, or are you speaking as a citizen individually?
I'm speaking as Park Board Chairman.
Okay. Jim Bensley.
Okay, so we took a hard look, our Park and Recreation Board took a hard look at our calendars, and the reason these were set in place is because we actually, believe it or not, we did listen to the citizens, okay? we did take a look, our park board was looking at next door when people were putting things on there they wanted, okay? And so, and then I've heard from the council members that there were some things that they liked. So we actually, the music in the park was from a council member, okay? Actually, the mayor and a council member asked for the music in the park, okay? The picnic, that was addressed last year, and there was a lot of people who said that they wanted to do a picnic. So that's why we didn't get to do it on the schedule last year, because we actually didn't have any money until we did the festival. The festival actually generated the income to keep this self-funded, these events, okay? So now we have a little bit of money, but that being said, if we eliminate the festival out of this year, then that takes away having money to finish off the year. So, I have to, that is our moneymaker to do all these other events and stay self-funded. So that's the problem. If I take that and move it to the first year, then I'm gonna run into a little bit of a money crunch. I know that the city has agreed and has a line item for us for $6,000, but my whole thing has been historically, right from the beginning, that we want to be self-funded. We don't want to dip into the city funds. That being said, I do need a revenue source to make these events happen, okay? The city picnic is strictly, that's what it is, just for our residents, okay? It's a Sunday afternoon. It's nothing major. The park board is pretty much gonna, run it. We're gonna have potato sack races and three-legged races and cornhole toss, and we're gonna cook some hot dogs. That's pretty much what it's gonna be. It's not gonna be anything major. It's just a bunch of people getting together and just having some fun, period. So it is not a big ordeal, and it's very simple. Music in the park is basically, again, on a Sunday afternoon. These are events, keeping in mind, my park board has been very good about trying to keep these on Sundays, because historically, the city doesn't have rentals on Sundays. So that way we're not cutting into the income source for the city. So we have these on a Sunday afternoon. The music in the park, you just bring your lawn chairs, and we'll have a group here playing music, jazz, something very easy. It is later in the afternoon, it's only for 2 hours, and it's not that big of a deal. Yes, there is a rain date. The beach party is going to be a little bit more challenging trying to do that, because it is at Morgan Park, and the spots. We're going to have to probably use some of the parking over at the marina as an overflow to make this happen. But the grills are already there, and again, keeping with the theme of trying to do Sunday afternoons. So trunk or treat, we all know that was very simple. That's basically was pretty much residents. I think we had one outside child there. Very simple. The holiday party is going to be housed in here. Everybody's going to come here. We're going to light the tree first, and then we're going to come in and just have some hot chocolate, maybe some caroling. Santa will be here. The kids want their photos taken with Santa. And then we have some leftover stuff still from last year to decorate ornaments, and the kids can decorate the ornaments and put them on the tree. The city managers agreed to have the tree in the corner, and if the kids wanted to decorate an ornament and put their ornament on the city tree here inside the thing. Let's see, and the tree lighting was recommended by a resident to have a citizen who's kind of gone above and beyond, who the park board thinks deserves to be the one that lights the tree. And that was recommended by Wayne Harris, and I think that is a great idea, because that helps promote trying to get more citizens involved in the community here. So, and then the boat parade, I spoke to a captain that does the City of Indian Rocks today. Had a lengthy 45-minute conversation with him. We're gonna try to make that happen. If it should happen, it would be north of the bridge. It cannot be south of the bridge because the waters aren't deep enough. And he would have to check out the individual inlets and the tides and so forth. And that's what he does for them, and he's been doing it for years. So we're still working out the logistics on it, but I just need with that one, I just need a preliminary okay to pursue checking into it, not getting that done, not making that happen. I need a preliminary on that one. Again, that one, until I have all the information on it, I'm not really ready to commit on that one. Okay, because I want to make sure that the city is totally safeguarded, just like I have with every other event. So that one I'm not going to push. February 7th, I don't think you guys received that. Did they get that one for the fashion show? They did get that one, okay, because I didn't see it on mine. February 7th would be a fashion show here at City Hall with the tea. Just that's what it is. You know, something very simple. Have one of the local ladies stores come in and showcase their stuff. We have a tea, just basically for the women in our community to come to. Okay. Let's see, did I miss any of them? Well, of course, the Festival by the Sea. We're going to change it up. We always thought that in the beginning that we want to keep that fresh. We don't want to have the same thing. So this year we're going to have one inflatable, and we'll have more game kind of things, like carnival game kind of things for the kids instead. So that's our goal and our lineup. So I'm open to any questions.
You moved the Festival by the Sea because of the heat associated with it, right? I think that answered
Correct.
Councilwoman Shirley's question. That's why it moved to November from, I think we had it in September last year, right?
Correct.
I would recommend that anything that you don't have a date yet, that we remove it from the list and then vote on it on a later date, rather than just saying, vote for this event, if that makes sense.
I'm just looking, don't we have a date, what don't we have the date for? Just the boat parade, correct?
Like the boat parade and the holiday party.
We had the holiday party, oh, you and I talked about it, did we pick a date? We picked a date for the holiday party. It was going to be, wasn't it, that you said that it would have to be because of you don't set the tree up before.
It has to be after Thanksgiving.
So it has to be after Thanksgiving. So,
You can
so
go-
we had said that we were gonna do it, I thought it was the 6th, December 6th?
You didn't pick a date.
Let's do this, so as not to spend a lot of council time. We are going to have a special meeting, it looks like, for our next thing. You can come back to us on the date for the holiday party and the boat parade. I know you need some guidance as to whether there's interest here, right? So, but you have some research to do.
I have a park board meeting this Wednesday, we'll just make sure we have a date then. So can I be on the agenda for that, for the city council, so we can come back and get this other event, the holiday parade?
Patty, can we add any items that we pull off over here? Because I'm going to ask for an amended motion here from council momentarily. And we'll just take these item by item and approve them. And if I can do it with a voice vote, it'll go a lot quicker. Do you have a problem with that? Voice vote singly? You're not shaking your head, so I think it's good. Okay.
No, I mean, it's whatever you,
Okay. I just think it'll go quicker. I think most of them pass. So. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Vanscoy. Does anybody else want to address the council? Council, back to us for comments, and then I'm going to ask for an amendment here. Okay, no other comments. So what we're going to do, I'm going to ask that somebody make an amended approval by City Council for a list of city events submitted by the Park and Recreation Board for which deadlines are stated.
So moved.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any comments? We're voting on the change for the amendment only. Any citizen comments back to us? We're voting on that change only. Basically, if it doesn't have a date, we're not going to vote on it tonight. We can do this by voice. Why not? Want to do it by voice?
Sure.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Do you have any opposed? It's unanimous, 7-0. It's amended. Now we're going to go with the amended. I'm going to take them, unless council wants me to do it as a group, I'm going to take them item by item, and we'll just do a voice vote. Sound good? Everybody shaking their head yes. Okay. May 17th, city picnic at Bayside Park. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I'm sorry, is that a nay?
Yes.
Councilwoman Swope is the nay. It passes 6-1. June 7th, music in the park, 6 to 8 p.m. with a rain date of June 14th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
6-1. Councilwoman Swope opposed. It passes. July 12th, beach party at Morgan Park with a rain date of July 19th. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
6-1. Councilwoman Swope opposed. It passes. Trunk or treat, October 25th, 4 to 6 p.m. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
6-1. Councilwoman Swope opposed. It passes. Festival by the Sea, November 7th, 2 to 6 p.m. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
6-1. Councilwoman Swope opposed. It passes. The holiday party is going to be deferred. Boat parade is deferred until the next council meeting, the special council meeting. Fashion show, February 7th, 2021. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
We have 6-1. Councilwoman Swope opposed. It passes. So, Ms. Van Scoy, you have approval of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 events. The 2 that were not approved at this time, just haven't been voted on, is the holiday party and the boat parade. We'll wait to hear from you on your next proposal on that. Thank you. All right, we now go to individuals' reports. We go to City Attorney first. Fred?
I have a report this evening.
Okay, thank you. City Manager?
Yes,
Mic is off.
oops. Yes, Mayor and Council, I've provided you just at your seat tonight, the proposed budget schedule and our budget work sessions and the process that we go through every year. Also, I gave you a flyer, understanding managing flood risk for elected officials. There's a link on that flyer that you can go to if you have interest in looking at that. It's a new publication put out by the Association of Floodplain Managers. Also, the mayor had asked a question about this property out here. And I sent an email to Florida Communities Trust. Can the city sell the property? The response was no. According to the grant agreement, the project site shall only be managed for conservation, protection, enhancement, and natural resources. Can the city buy the property back? No. The city holds the title, but there is a paragraph in the grant agreement that's something to do with the Preservation 2000 funding, and it was agreed to by all covenants by the city council at that time. And then, can the city build a public works building on the site? Unfortunately, that answer is no also, because the conditions were set up that it had to be used for outdoor recreation, but it's all detailed here. Because those were questions that the mayor brought up at the work session.
What about giving it back to the state? Is that an option? They don't want it, right?
They don't want it.
It's ours, okay.
It's a timeshare.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's prime waterfront, so I guess we shouldn't complain so much about that. We've gotten in the quotes from the engineering, and we're reviewing those for 7th Street. So we'll get that back to you probably at the next meeting. Last week we held a kickoff meeting. Councilmember Shirley was there also with us, Chris Rowe and Kelly Westover. And there's some information they're going to be requesting from the city that we will provide to them to start this process. So at least we've started that. The check valves, we replaced that on 13th Street. It was at no cost to us. They brought a new check valve. We didn't help them put it in.
the engineer from Switzerland came in, and we also looked at the one on 9th Street, and we're monitoring it. We've had a couple tides that are up there in the last few days with the wind pushing the water, and I've checked those streets, and there hasn't been any water in them, so maybe we
Keep your fingers crossed.
keep the fingers crossed. And just want the council to know, you've got a new free library out here, a little free library in front. And Grady Wright, one of our public works employees, rebuilt that, built a brand new one. Because the other one, well, we got that donated probably 2.5 years ago when weather got to it. So he's got some nice color shades on it. So it's kind of a nice thing, and I think that's a great thing that one of our employees, it costs a little bit of material, but hey, did it ourselves, and we didn't have to spend $500 for another one. So that's a good thing.
Thank you to Grady on behalf of the
Yeah.
council and city.
And we've started the in-house tree trimming, so you're going to see it dumpsters in a few places around the city. We've got 4 free dumpsters from Waste Management for that, and we've rented the lift truck, and we've started at Bayside. So we're going to move through the city. The tall palms that are in the beach easement that we trim every year, those are going to be done by a contractor, because that lift has to be like 60 foot in the air. We don't have that capability. And they started relocating the fence at the marina to open the north end up, and we're taking there's some old tie poles in there we're going to take out, and all of that's in progress. That's all I have.
Thank you. City Clerk?
Nothing.
I just want to thank you for, I shot those things to you on Friday night at I don't even know, we were almost ready to close, but thanks for getting those resolutions out, and Fred Riley, thanks for looking at them, and Lynn too. We did that in record time, and this is going to the governor's office tomorrow, and Nick Basiglia's office tomorrow, and so this will be good. I really appreciate that. Unfinished business, Lynn and I, we have to tell you about our meeting with Tom Washburn of Pinellas County. Lynn, I know you prepared a little summary here.
Yeah, this actually came from the county, and it just highlights the discussion we had. And I did suggest to the mayor at that meeting that, to understand how the traffic cameras and stuff work. I don't know if any of you have ever been to that big screen where they turn the red lights and just, okay. It's something that I think if you have the time and you can participate in that, that would be a good thing to understand how the traffic light system works in the county. It is throughout the county.
Just so you know, I'm waiting on him to just get in touch with me. I love doing those kind of tours. I toured the sewer plant. I love this kind of stuff. This will be a lot cleaner. So I'm happy to do that. It's working better. And having been injected into a few traffic jams recently on weekends, it's moving better. It used to be about 40 minutes to get to from Indian Rocks Road sometimes to the end. Before you get the light. I think we clocked it at 10 minutes. Still not acceptable, but it was better. Unfortunately, that doesn't help people who are going north, and one of the things you and I spoke to them about, we have this phenomenon that the traffic in our city stops at around 17th, 18th Street. The misnomer was that it was traffic all the way to Clearwater, and I've injected myself into a couple traffic jams just to research this. And it breaks up at 17th or 18th. And it's what the deputies have told me also, that a lot of times it breaks up at 17th or 18th. The only thing, we spoke to the county about that, and they didn't know why. The only thing we could all come up with is that's where the real big mansions are on Bel Air Shore. And it may be sightseeing, but people are slowing down. So believe it or not, we're going to have, one of the things we talked about with them is actually putting a sign, and this is probably the first in Pinellas County, where we're actually going to say, maintain speed limit. People are slowing down, and it's not traffic all the way into Clearwater, and it's not traffic all the way into Sand Key Park. It's people slowing down to look at the houses, or they're just really accelerating slowly. And there's not a thing in the world that we could do in our city to help that problem out. So we're actually, one of the solutions we talked about is actually putting a sign saying, maintain your speed. Because if you slow down to look at those houses, it doesn't take too long when we back it all the way up to around the corner. To another point that John Hanzik said, we discussed this, was I had proposed widening the bridge to 2 lanes, and not physically, we're not adding concrete, but can you squeeze 2 lanes? Particularly coming west, you can. Okay, the problem comes in, you can, there's room there, they think they can do it, they're gonna get back to us. The problem comes in is it bottlenecks once you get into the private property, and that's where we lose it. So it looks as if all we can do is park cars on the bridge. You put more people up on the bridge to take a nice scenic view, but it's not going to accomplish anything. But we're going to have a look into it and see what we can do. They did tell us then, right, that they were maximizing the cameras. Okay, there are cameras, that intersection is camera controlled, and they are able to vary the patterns of the light to try and stop the traffic as best they can, or make the traffic go as quickly as they can. Take them at their word on that they're doing it. Again, I saw some improvement. I don't drive it every day. I'd love to have feedback from the residents on that as to what's happening, but I'm not going to go into traffic jams just for the fun of it. But you know, some of you do live north of the bridge, and I'd like to know what's really happening every weekend.
I have some information on
Okay.
for Pinellas County. Basically, they have automatically adjusting traffic lights all over Pinellas County. They actually, believe it or not, they monitor your cell signal. So if you're passing one sensor and then you pass another, they know how fast you were going. They don't know who you are, supposedly. But they are able to monitor traffic that way. Those lights are actually pretty good at automatically adjusting. Whenever they see that there's a long stall, they will self-adjust. The problem is those that hardware is not everywhere. What most people don't know is they actually have a phone number you can call at any time while you're stuck in traffic and speak with a live person, and they'll literally flip the switch right there on the spot. They give out this, it's like a pin with a big speed limit sign on it, and it's got their phone number. I'll find it.
He didn't tell us about that. Thanks, Dave.
I'll find it.
We'll let everyone know that.
They actually encourage the citizens to call in because they have to document every time someone calls in and request, hey, I'm stalled, what's going on? So I'll get that number and pass it on.
I'd like to get that out on our website and make sure everybody knows about that. Because listen, if you see it happening, let these folks know, because they are able to monitor it. But I mean, I can go there and look and they're going to say they're doing a great job, but I don't know. I asked them, are you doing the best job you can do? They told us yes. I don't know if I totally am on with that. It's better than last year, but it's not good as far as I'm concerned.
What I can add is a huge operation. It's huge, and they've huge screens filling a room this size, and that's all they do all day long is just monitor traffic. Given the amount of people here, I think they're actually doing a decent job. I won't say it's great, but that's just because of the number of visitors we get.
And it has improved. We've opened the 2, there was diagonal lines, which I don't know what they were really there for, but on the left turn. So we've actually opened that up so that you can get into that left lane quicker without the fear of getting a ticket. Sheriff's assured us that, don't worry, that's not something that was a major concern, but still, a lot of people didn't want to cross that diagonal line knowing that it wasn't totally proper. So we've got that restriped. That's helped a little bit too, so it gets the people going south, but it's not so much the people going south, it's the people going north, which is the majority of our city. So I'm not satisfied with where we're at right now. We're going to keep plugging away. Lynn, what else do we have on this list here?
He's gonna, asking for the trips, because, I have some old data. I'd like to know what the trips are on,
Trip count.
It's a trip count daily average that they give. So I don't know how much they can give us for Causeway, but at least we should be able to get something for Gulf Boulevard. And then I did provide, the vice mayor gave me a little sketch that I did provide to them, and they're going to review that. They told me about wood making, 2 left turn lanes off Gulf Boulevard, help or hinder or be the same as it is, so they're gonna look at that.
We did bring that up to them, and basically they thought it might be a bottleneck, but let them look into it and see. I mean, we've had historically problems with this 13th Street Island and stuff like that, so if modification is necessary, this might be the time to do it. I mean, I guess the takeaway for the citizens is there's not an easy fix to this. It may be able to be fixed. I don't think anyone ever promised it was going to be completely fixed, but we're doing more than just saying, hey, we have a traffic problem, don't go out on Saturdays. I think we can do better than that, and we're going to keep fighting, and we're going to keep their feet to the fire. I mean, they were very receptive. They're both two very nice people, Tom Washburn. I told him I wasn't happy with that we didn't get back in touch with him, and I gave his telephone number. I don't know if anybody called him, but he laughed, and but we'll be working with them, and we'll see what we can do here. So.
Yeah, so that's pretty much a summary.
And we talked about the tolls and
yeah,
everything.
You've got this sheet. So we'll just move forward, and we'll contact them and try to schedule. If anyone has interest, please send us an email if you have interest in going, and we'll try to pick a date.
Yeah, if we can do a field trip, I mean, as long as it's not something that's going to come before the council. We don't control that room, but it sounds like it's an interesting trip. So.
It's like going to Nielsen.
They actually have something similar for the sewer system. It's just not as sexy. So they can see all the sewer stations and lift stations. It looks like mission control. Okay, that's everything. I think we've covered the unfinished business. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay. We're down to city council comments. Odd month. We start with Rita Swope.
I don't have anything to say, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Joe Shirley?
I just, real quick, went on the website to take a quick peek at the strategic plan because we were going to go over it in the last work session. We didn't talk about it. I think it needs to be put in front of everyone pretty regularly. And it was not available on our website. It kept taking me, I'd click it and it would take me around in circles and I couldn't get it to open up. So we need to somehow make that available. And if council hasn't reviewed it, I think we need to review it. I just hit the, top 5 goals if nothing else. That should be in your book every time. We should be looking at this monthly and thinking about it because communication, we passed this a year ago. Communication has not been addressed. I know now we're talking about it, but these are goals we set for this council. We need to stick to them. That's it.
Thank you. Dave Gaddis?
I've said enough.
Martin?
The only thing I want to ask Lynn is any news on Bay Shore and 22nd to Gulf?
No, actually, the vice mayor and I have met a couple times about the petition, and we're going to have some more discussion about that. Duke has not come back to me with a number yet.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Robin Aki?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
We need one more committee.
A couple are closing.
But I'm here to tell you that we've had great engagement by the people participating on those boards and committees. They're really dialed in, they're coming up with some great ideas, and it's a means of increasing communication. The people participating in those boards and committees are going back and talking to their neighbors, and we're getting feedback from their neighbors, and I think it's a very positive thing. We've really, we're doing good with those committees and boards. That's all.
I've got 3 very quick things. March 17th is St. Patrick's Day. That's not the important thing. What's important that day is the presidential primary. So for everybody who complains that they don't like this and they don't like that, it's your job to get out there and vote. It is a primary, it counts, and it sends messages even if one party doesn't have a lot of opposition, get out there and vote, okay? Then go and celebrate St. Patrick's Day. My best wishes to you. Coming up in April, we have our census. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if the city got I did a PSA for it, but I'll do the PSA right now. Complete the census, please. Our congressional seats and our representation and our monies and everything else and our districting is determined by that census. So please, it's coming out and get it done. It'll take you like 15 minutes. And last is really echoing what Vice Mayor said. We have been doing quite a bit in the city, and we're going to start to see those proposals come before council. And just a word to the citizens, please be open-minded about this. I heard stuff tonight that I never would have dreamed I was going to hear from the planning board. I just didn't expect that, and they're all good ideas. We may not adopt them all, you may not want to do any of them, but they're good ideas, and a lot of hard work has been put into these ideas. Change is going to happen, whether we want it to happen or not. It may be, good and it may be bad change. It may be forced upon us, but we have the opportunity to make changes for ourselves over here. We don't get an opportunity to do charter review but once every 10 years. So please, listen to the recommendations that are put out, and as a voter, you're going to make your decision, but make those decisions carefully, because you really won't see them again for another 10 years. And that seems with Finance Committee and everything else planning. So with that, I thank everyone for your attendance tonight. We're finished before 9 o'clock, 3-hour meeting. We got a lot done. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, and all in favor? Aye. Nobody's opposed, right? We are adjourned.